History Things podcast, a conversational approach to discussing social, industrial, maritime, music, and military history. Join us and our special guests as we dive down the rabbit holes of your favorite stories from the past. Follow the History Things podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or online at Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Be sure to leave a review and a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast app. Pat and Parker are coming right up. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the show.
Ooh, Parker. When it sounds like Iron Maiden... Wait, we're legally allowed to talk about Iron Maiden. We are. I'm just going back to make sure.
Right.
When it sounds like Iron Maiden, you know it's going to be a good one there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Parker, welcome back to the History Things podcast. How are you feeling today, man?
Let's see if we can remember how to do this,
It's been a long time since we've actually recorded an episode.
I know. We've been outside cooking meats.
Let's say behind the scenes, it's midsummer. We have been out doing the Grilling History series. We have done vacations. We've done the work slogs. It's been 1,000 degrees. It's just been a while since we actually came together to do a in-studio podcast.
Yeah. So
excited to get
I'm
into
excited about this. I've been looking forward to this episode since we wrapped part 1.
Right.
This is one of my favorites this season.
One of my favorites. I just like the way you did that.
One of my favorites.
All right, so we are here for
a little bit like a Jeff Dunham puppet.
You kind of did, and also a weird bit like Borat.
A little bit like Borat.
Like, one of my favorites.
This was one of my favorites.
But it's like you said, man. It's a part 2. So we are here for our second half of the story with Ken Gavin to talk about the Valley Forge encampment, that very famous winter of Washington, and things like that. So before we get into all that, Ken, what's up, man? Welcome back to the show, dude.
Yeah, it's great to be back, guys. I've been looking forward to this since we did the last one. And I got to say, man, as a guest and a listener, I love the cognitive dissonance in the intro. It's like Danielle's voice soothes you. It blows you.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's
wham, just dropping hammers.
It's imagine if Slayer had a nice chorus and then out of nowhere, Raining Blood. That's who we are, man.
Yeah, things have been busy since I saw you guys last year. Same as you all, work, summer stuff.
Yeah. We caught up in April, not too long after the recording, which was great to see it, things like that. But life is it's a fast thing, man, and suddenly weeks turn into months, turn into a reschedule, turn into vacations, turn into dude, I'm happy we're finally at this moment to do it. So one thing that we were talking about behind the scenes, we might not have covered in our first episode.
Right.
Who are you?
Yeah, so that's
normally we do the origin story and just a little bit of your background, but I was so excited to talk to you. I'm pretty sure we just got right into it.
We did, and it was a lot of fun. I don't know that we ever did that, but...
So what's your origin story? So for our listeners who spent the last couple hours listening to you and falling in love with your storytelling, tell them who you are, how you got into history, what's your background?
So the origin story is not Gettysburg.
What?
Right? I know. It's just
that's almost illegal on the show.
I know.
You got to get a permit for that.
I think I got one. So, for as long as I can remember, and these are actually some of my earliest memories from when I was 3 or 4 years old, and considering that I'm advancing in years, that I can remember back that far is good now. Valley Forge is one of my earliest memories. Mom is a school teacher, still is to this day, and I recall very distinctly on Sunday afternoons, and I grew up about 10 or 15 minutes from Valley Forge National Historical Park, being pulled around in a little red wagon and her reading these wayside markers to me.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's amazing.
Always fascinated.
Good mom.
One of the best in the world. And actually the best in the world, because she's going to listen to this. You are the best, Mom.
Shout out, Mom.
Love you, Mom.
Pouring this pint for you, Mom.
Yeah, there you go. She'll enjoy it. She's a Blue Moon girl.
Oh, is she?
She won't object to Guinness.
All right, well, that is a strong pint. When you watch that settle on YouTube here, you're going to be like, man, that was a pro pour.
That is a pro
For
pour.
a Guinness in a can, that's how you do it.
I watched you do it out of the side of my eye. That was It's not your first day at the rodeo.
No, I've been to this one before here. So
anyway, Valley Forge is the origin for me, and I always loved going there, and I was fascinated by the material culture displays. And the first time that I saw Park Service personnel doing living history, I was like super hooked.
Right.
It was just like, whoa, this thing is like alive.
Sometimes they don't even have to shoot. You just see the
No.
clothes and you're like, whoa.
I was hooked from day one.
Right.
And then it was like 1984, the Barry Bostwick CBS miniseries about the life of Washington, based on the Flexner books, came on. And I was not a normal 4/5-year-old because they recorded this for me. And if you wanted to like make sure I was quiet for like 6 hours, just pop in that VHS tape.
Yeah.
As a kid, loved it. Valley Forge is the origin. It's where it starts for me. I found out about Civil War stuff, a little bit later. My grandparents used to take me on day trips out to Gettysburg, Antietam, Harper's Ferry. So I developed a love for both of these time periods. And interestingly enough, I've been working part-time at Valley Forge for 18 years now as an interpretive guide.
Amazing.
So they run all of that through the Encampment Store, which is their nonprofit partner. For a period of my career, I was doing history on a full-time basis, working with Teaching American History grants. Been doing living history for over 20 years now. I did Civil War for an extended period, and Rev War I was doing at the same time as Civil War for a little while, and then transitioned and just was focusing on Rev War stuff completely because 2 wars is a lot.
Yeah.
And it gets busy. In addition to Valley Forge, I still do consulting work right now for Adams County Historical Society for a lot of their programs. I'm working part-time for the state of New Jersey for their Department of Parks, Jesus Christ.
It works,
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's
Try that
Jersey.
again.
It's Jersey.
Yeah. The Department of Parks and Forestry, as they plan for the semi-quincentennial and for Washington's crossing on the Pennsylvania side. So in addition to work full-time, I do all of that. I have to share a quick story because for all of us who do public history, sometimes it's hard. It's a slog for various reasons with all these external pressures, and we don't always see our impact firsthand.
Yeah.
So I distinctly remember being this little chubby 8 or 9-year-old kid and going to Valley Forge for Washington's birthday one year. And in one of the huts at the Muhlenberg Brigade, there were these 2 rangers in 18th century dress. One of these guys was portraying a chaplain, and the other one was a private soldier. So they talked to me half an hour. It had to be, answered every question I had, and gave me this little lead soldier. They gave me 2 of them.
Oh,
And they're on my desk to this day at my office at work.
That's awesome.
So it gets better. Fast forward, I'm working at Valley Forge part-time, and a couple of the older guys retired, 10, 11 years ago. After they retired, they come back for our commemoration of the march in at Valley Forge's volunteers one night. And it was one of those bitter-ass cold December evenings.
Yeah.
And I'm there in uniform, my 18th century kit as an officer, and this ranger who I'd known and worked with who had just retired, his name was Bill Troutman. And Bill looked at me and said, "Why do you do this to yourself?" And he was serious. And I said, "I don't know, Bill." I said, "I guess I'm a glutton for punishment." And I said, "Actually, Bill, my love of this and wanting to do public history and living history goes back to this moment when I was a kid. And these rangers who just took me under their wing for that 30-minute period." And his jaw hit the floor. And he said, "Don't move." Yeah. And he yelled for this other guy, George Matlack, who had recently retired. He said, "George, come here." And he said, "Tell George exactly what you told me."
Yeah.
And George just stood there, like dumbstruck. And I said, "What's going on with you two?" And he said, "Ken, that was us."
They were the 2 rangers?
They were the Rangers.
No.
And the reason he knew it was, he
beautiful.
said, that was our thing. If we had a young person who was super engaged, we always gave them those little tokens. We kept them in our pockets. And I said, "Well, then, Bill, you're the reason I do this."
Awesome, dude.
Yeah. So
That's so cool.
That is one of the.
That might be one of the coolest stories told on this show. That's so legit,
That is
dude. That's
amazing.
awesome.
wrap the episode. We're done now.
Yeah, dude. Michael, get out of here. Credits. History Things Pub is officially closed. We're just finishing the pints and we're out. Dude, that was great.
Thanks. Yeah, so that's me in short. So for everybody else out there, and I know a lot of our friends and common contacts in this world listen to the program, you are that person for somebody. Whether
That's
or not
right, yeah.
the encounter
That's
ever
right.
happens, that they get to come back and tell you all those years later, you are that person for somebody else.
Right. We're there for the one,
Yep.
whoever the one is, whatever that moment.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, dude, it's funny. Like, everybody that is in our community as you told that story, as they're listening, it was thinking of their moment.
Yep.
Because they all had, like, for me, as you were
100%.
telling that story, I was like, I'm in Binghamton, New York, watching the most random Civil War reenactment, and this Yankee soldier gave me a spent cap.
Yeah.
And I was 6,
Right.
and I was like, oh my God! Like dude, it's a spent cap. It's literally just a fulminated mercury cap, and at 6 years old, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Here I am for life,
And it's like in that moment, it's like the greatest treasure in your world.
dude. That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
And then to have that come full circle, man. What a way to kick off. What was going to be otherwise, I imagine, a pretty sober episode at times, considering we're titling this one different. In episode 1, it was just Valley Forge Part 1, basically.
Yeah. Yep.
But we have a specific title for this one. Do we want to get off with it, or do you want to?
Yeah, we can go with that. I mean, we were going to call this one "Naked and Starving as They Are."
Well, I have something maybe that will help you out.
Oh yeah, so I forgot Parker.
So Naked and Starving is here. What if I could help you with the naked bit a little bit?
Okay.
Are you going to get naked?
No, I'm going to.
I haven't even touched this pint yet, Parker.
I might be
it
able.
just settled.
History things after
Okay,
that.
I'm getting there. Go.
I might be able to help the prevention of the getting naked, and I have a gift. A gift for you. A gift for all three of us, basically.
Ooh, is it Christmas?
It kind of is Christmas. It's wintertime, right?
No, I mean, but so when you were talking about it's one of those cold December nights, I was like, God, I could use one of those right now. It's been a hot summer.
I was sitting across from you last time, and you made a statement, and you made a joke, and I laughed so hard I went home the next day and I made something.
I'm very nervous.
So this is great television right here, and I don't have my peepers on.
Do you need me?
Does that say L?
That is an XL.
That is an XL. This is for you, sir.
Okay, that is because I'm the fat one.
Don't unfold it yet. wait. No, wait. That actually. No, this is for you.
Okay, jeepers.
That's a 2X, just for the record.
Okay.
There you go, sir.
So do we?
So
do
go
we
ahead
do
and
this
open them up, and
concurrently?
I'm wearing
Ken,
mine.
when you open yours, the camera you want to show it to is that one right there.
I'm just going to reveal mine. You guys go ahead and look first before I reveal my.
Parker, you're we're looking over here. All right, we doing it?
Oh my God, I love it. That's awesome.
Look what he's got in his hand there.
That's great. Oh, we're going to talk about him more today too.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I love this.
Parker, a ratio game.
Yes, this is. Yeah. That's.
Oh, Parker, I love that. That's great.
Dude,
Yes.
this
you.
This is going on under my guide uniform
Awesome.
at the next tour
Awesome.
that I give.
Fantastic.
This is great, dude.
We're yeah.
Oh, I love it.
I'm the model tonight.
I absolutely love it.
Thank you. I'm glad you like it.
Oh, it's
I
so thoughtful.
I went home thinking. I went home thinking about it. I was like, tomorrow morning, I'm gonna fire up my.
Those
my
are 3
skills.
of 3. That's it.
That's it. Those are the only 3 like it on the planet.
Parker, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
That's
Thank you, man.
funny.
That's
dude.
My
awesome.
pleasure. Hope you enjoy it.
All
do.
right. So
I've been waiting.
naked.
I've been waiting since March to give that to you.
He has. He's brought it up a
And
lot.
I've been saying, when can I bring it up? When can I bring it up? And I was like, oh my gosh.
So naked and starving as they are.
Naked and Starving as They Are.
Switching gears.
Switching gears.
Less laughs. Let's
Right.
talk about this miserably suffering army right now.
Yeah, so, and this is, last time that we spoke, we sort of left off with all the reasons why Washington's going to have choosing Valley Forge, the complexities, economic, political, social, all of these pressures that are on this guy. And he knew he was going to have to leave his encampment at White Marsh, where he'd been for about 6 weeks. And he was going to have to move towards the Great Valley and eventually Valley Forge. So, that's where I want to pick up now is how does he get there? What's sort of happening on the way? That 6-week period is coming to a close. The supply scenario for well over a month has just been abysmal because the Commissary General and the Quartermaster General have both quit. That rudderless supply system, Pennsylvania's militia system, isn't turning out. And the Supreme Executive Council of Pennsylvania is basically boxing Washington in, saying, you can't go far away from Philadelphia because if you do, then we're not able to control the population. We need you as a constabulary force. Pennsylvania might have to jet and pull out of the revolution. So Washington, by the time you get to early December, is now getting probed by the British. From December 5th to the 8th, Crown forces are coming through the outskirts of the city and they're starting to attack the outskirts of his encampment. And that's the point in time when Washington figures out this is unsafe. I can't stay. These are good defensive positions, but I'm going to get my teeth kicked in if I stay here.
Yeah.
So he begins to move towards the Schuylkill River, and he's going to have to cross over there to get to the environs of Valley Forge. And he begins moving the bulk of his infantry towards the Matson's Ford on December 11th, and the army will start to move at 4 in the morning. Matson's Ford is right near present-day Conshohocken, Pennsylvania, which is where I grew up, actually, and West Conshohocken on the other side of the river. So both of those locations are going to factor in. He's not going to send the bulk of the baggage with the infantry. He's going to send that further towards Swedes Ford, which is modern Norristown, Pennsylvania. And originally, Sullivan is going to take the lead with a couple of brigades, and he's going to cross the river. And when Washington sees that, he actually makes a change to the order of march, which is kind of interesting. Washington is known for not caring for militia. He says after Brandywine that reliance on the militia system is like reliance upon a broken staff.
Right.
He can't stand them. He sees them as unreliable. But in this instance, he pulls the Pennsylvania militia under James Potter and John Lacey, and he wants them to cross first. He wants them to be the recon force to go over there. The reason that he does that is he is really happy with the work that Potter has done over the past couple of months, tracing those road networks and gathering intelligence as to what the British are doing in the area, in the region. So Potter's going to go over first. We don't have a really firm handle on how big that force is, but it's probably somewhere in the range of 750 to 1,000 guys.
So let me ask you something.
Yeah.
So Washington has this disdain for the militia.
Yep.
He's been in command for a little over a year, somewhere between a little over a year and almost a year and a half at this point, right? When does he makes it up in 75?
Washington's June of 75, right? So just a bit over 2 years.
So it's about
point.
Or are we in 77?
We're in 77.
Oh, we're in
yeah.
77. Okay, so
over
2 years.
Yeah.
So the question that the question I want to ask is this. So he arrives and takes command of basically a militia army that has got this war going. Mm-hmm. Is this frustration of his like the same then? Like these guys suck in 75 when he's there assuming command in June? Or is this at 2 years into this, these guys haven't morphed into the army I need them to be frustration?
Sure, it's a really good question. The army that he's going to encounter in 1775 is largely the Massachusetts Provincial Army, other militias from New England that are coming in. His problem in 75 is the complete lack of discipline.
Right.
And
it's all slapdash. It's all
slapdash in the camps. It's really, there's no military structure. You've got guys electing their officers. You can't see the difference between officers and privates. It's that sort of very New England town hall way of doing everything. So let's have a discussion about it and make sure that everybody agrees. And it's like, we don't have time for that.
No,
right?
This is a war.
It's a war. So the Continental forces, though, are going to evolve over time. In 75 and 76, it's 1 year enlistments. The guys who are enlisting in the Continental forces proper in early 77 are 3 years of the war. And the guys who fought the Philadelphia campaign that precedes Valley Forge, they are largely new recruits that have come on in early 77. Like when you get past the 10 Crucial Days campaign in late 76, early 77, that doesn't do anything to keep the army together. It's all for morale for the civilians. There's a point in time in New Jersey in early 77 where Washington's got like less than 1,000 effectives on the Continental rolls.
That's crazy.
Which is insane.
I mean, that is nuts.
It's almost at a point where it's dissipated. So the new recruits come into the influx of Continental service, but the state militias in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, he sees them as unreliable because they'll often show up in camp for a term of service but disappear before they can do anything useful. And Washington doesn't have complete authority over those militia troops, over state levies that are coming in. Basically, when it's time for them to go, they go. It doesn't matter if there's an exigent emergency. He can't handle them. And I think we talked a little bit before, like it's not just Washington who's angry about the militia system. Mordecai Gist, when they're in Pennsylvania, is saying Pennsylvania is supposed to have 62,000 men on its militia rolls. Where the hell are they?
But I mean, so what's the reaction? So I guess, is he literally screaming this type of stuff in meetings, or is this sort of just like him bemoaning it in writings?
It's him bemoaning it in writings.
Okay.
Because he can only ever go so far too, because if he agitates specific states or specific state governments, it makes his life even harder. But, Potter's going to be sort of this exception because Potter's got this militia force that is intact for an extended period of time, and he's done good service for Washington. So the guy who knows the road networks, the guy who knows the region, the guy who's been giving you good intelligence, of course he's going to push him out before he pushes Sullivan. So when Potter gets out there, and Lacey's a brigadier, they're both brigadier generals in the Pennsylvania militia, not in the Continental Army. They get across at Matson's Ford and begin to push. They suddenly encounter a British reconnaissance and force foraging party that's like 4,000 strong.
That's a huge reconnaissance party.
Huge.
That's emphasis on force.
Emphasis on force. And it's a surprise, based on the accounts I've seen, that they even run into each other. Wow. The British, at that point in early December, are still trying to harvest as much forage as they can for the winter that's coming. You know, even though they've reduced the American river defenses and they've got a clear lane up the Delaware River, they're trying to bring as much forage into the city of Philadelphia as they can. So this is going to result in a meeting engagement on the other side of the Schuylkill River. And, you know, Lacey and Potter actually do a really good job. They're outnumbered probably 4-1, and they work through this successive series of ridge lines near Matson's Ford. And the way that Potter and Lacey set things up are they put troops on all 3 ridges they know the Brits are going to have to hit to come forward. So Potter and Lacey instruct their first line to fire a couple of volleys and then to retreat back, not to the second line, but all the way to the third line. And they're going to utilize the undulations in the ground from ridge to ridge to mask maneuver. When the Brits hit the second line, they're getting a third of the force. When the second line retreats, they're hitting everything that Potter and Lacey have left all at once.
So all concentrated.
It's he's showing really good presence of mind because he's understanding concentration of force and defense in depth.
I would say he just created a strong defense in depth.
Yeah, so it's like that's not just happening in the South in 1780. We've got examples of that type of maneuver that's happening up here. Now, unfortunately, being outnumbered 4-1, these guys are just getting hammered.
Yeah, you can't hold forever.
You can't hold forever. Yeah. And they just, when they break, they break.
How long is this engagement?
It's probably going to be over the course of about an hour, 90 minutes, and that's really undefined.
Sure.
But it is, you know, it's a delaying action at the same time. But they have to break and they have to run. And unfortunately, Sullivan has already started to cross the bridge with 2 Maryland brigades and a portion of Wayne's Pennsylvanians. So what Sullivan sees is the British up on the heights above him and all of Potter and Lacey's guys throwing guns, throwing equipment, and telling them to get the hell out of there as quickly as they possibly can. And almost at the same time, Washington appears on the opposite side of the river and is watching this all unfold. So he immediately orders Sullivan to come back because the Continentals have no idea what's going on. Is this a large British force who has intelligence about their line of march and their movements that's trying to destroy them when they're crossing the river at a vulnerable point? Or was this a reconnaissance in force? Was it foraging? It's later determined through continental espionage that this was a very large foraging reconnaissance in force, that they hadn't really been there to assault Washington. Okay. The British come to the top of the hillside. They see the Americans moving over across the river, and they kind of glare at them for a while and then go about their business. And Sullivan starts to take apart this, and it's basically a pontoon bridge that they've got over the Schuylkill River there. So they begin deconstructing that so the British can't follow them. And Washington very quickly decides, we're not going to cross at this point. We're going to move the army up to where the baggage is. We're going to go up to the Swedes' Ford. Washington is really complimentary about the way that Potter and Lacey, he writes about them, and he says, the Pennsylvania militia behaved with great bravery and gave them meaning the British, every possible opposition until obliged to retreat in the face of superior numbers. So Washington was really pleased with what they did.
I mean, it sounds like Washington's saying, like, getting respect, like, got to give it when you see it.
Yeah. Right. So, you know, that,
like, they're bums, but they got to hit.
Exactly. 1914 Boston Braves, it happened.
Right.
So,
question for you. You mentioned through continental espionage. Is this where Abraham Woodhull's running around with Benjamin Talmadge and Caleb Brewster? Is this all set up yet, or is this just completely unaffiliated to Washington's little
This is different. This is a network that he's got set up with local civilians working through the Pennsylvania militia. And it's an informal network of information gathering. The espionage that Washington's conducting in the Mid-Atlantic region is something that he starts to refine and there's not a lot of documentation on this, shockingly. But he's because it's espionage.
Right.
Yeah.
But he does try to refine this after Brandywine because Washington feels that the intelligence he received regarding British military operations prior to that battle was very faulty. So it's something he's got an eye on as the winter progresses. So moving the army up at this point now, and keep in mind, these are guys who supplies have been bad, clothing very short supply.
Right.
For the past month at least, they're now been up since 4 a.m., have marched several miles, have attempted to cross a river. A part of the army has been engaged.
Right.
Now they're going to march another 5 to 6 miles up the river to Swedes Ford at modern-day Norristown.
Been a stressful morning.
Very. Not a pleasant walk in the Pennsylvania countryside.
Have they had their coffee yet?
No.
Some of them.
Some of them maybe, but I'll tell you what, not as many as we'd like. So when Washington gets up there to Swedes Ford, security is high on his mind. One of the first things he's going to do is order that the army huddle around the bank, and he forms them in a semicircular environment around the river. And almost immediately, they begin to build a new pontoon bridge. The river at that point is not super wide. It's about 350 feet.
Okay.
But it's December. We're in a snow/rainstorm. Conditions are terrible.
Yeah.
And the bridge that they're going to construct is made of approximately 36 wagons that are sunk in the river end to end. And then they lay plank fencing across the wagons.
Right.
So what that's going to do is it's going to create a situation when the army finally starts to move on the 12th. They can't move till the evening. Washington needs to let them rest. The bridge has to be built. They don't start moving until 6 o'clock at night. And Lieutenant James McMichael from Pennsylvania tells us at 6 p.m. we marched to the bridge at the Swedes Ford, which we crossed in Indian file, and at 3 a.m. encamped near the Gulf, where we remained without tents or blankets in the midst of a severe snowstorm.
That sucks.
Big time emphasis on suck.
Dude, 3 o'clock in the
3 o'clock
morning
in the
is
morning.
Bush League. The weather is Bush League. The lack of blankets.
Yeah. It's you would think if you would want those guys moving as quickly as possible to try to stave off hypothermia, any of that's, but they can't. They're literally that exhausted that they just need to get across.
Are they in a
and
no
they're falling.
fires kind of discipline at this point too? Because they don't want to be seen while they're moving. Do we know?
We don't know.
All right.
I know Joseph Plum Martin writes about other crossings where fires are lit in hollowed trees and things like that, but nothing I've seen here indicates that they are lighting them or not lighting them. All the accounts of that march have said it's arduous, that guys are falling in the river.
Yeah.
Because
Well, imagine. That's
Right. On the fence plank, it's not level,
No.
not uniform.
right. And if the wagons are not flat across,
Right.
which
Then-
I can guarantee you they were not.
right.
And most of
Yeah.
these guys are wearing those slick bottom buckled shoes.
Yeah.
Right. So
Those are the worst shoes in the entire universe.
absolutely.
By the way. I hate those
There's
things.
no traction.
Why didn't they wear Jordans, right?
I know, man.
Jesus. Just get them grips. You know what they needed? Because we're all old enough for the reference. They needed those 90s pumps. Those NBA where you did the basketball pumps. That's actually
And then
how
he would have said, what is it?
the French brought them, and that's how we beat the British.
Yeah.
Everybody knows
all
that.
those kids with the pumped up kicks.
Oh,
that are
no,
running-
no, no,
that
no, no, no. Cheers. All right.
So
All right, so people are falling in. So I mean, it sucked, right? I emphasize the suck, but we could nickel and dime a lot of things. So the weather, the clothing, the bridge condition. How long does the crossing take?
the crossing will take approximately 9 hours.
No thanks.
So if you're
I
last
mean-
in line, you're standing there, and I can't imagine you're crossing quickly, and with good reason, the guy's in front of you, and it's dark, and there's no light. It's
Right.
dark.
Yeah.
It's snowing. It's raining. You've got a swift current on the Schuylkill River there. It's a really crappy way to try to get across, but it's the best that they can possibly do. There's no good documentation on deaths that have resulted from guys falling in the river, but in the local churchyard, there are at least 9 graves for Continentals that are dated to December of 1777. so you can deduce that that's probably where those casualties are coming from. Guys who fell in the river or
Froze
for
to
whatever
death.
froze to death,
Yeah.
didn't make it across. And after Washington gets over there, he wants to be moving as quickly as possible. He wants to get these guys into their permanent encampment. He doesn't want to stay there for long. He orders that when the baggage gets across, and that's going to be able to forward over in the wagons. They're going to drive that across. When they get across there, that he wants all the tents to stay in the baggage. The only thing that he's going to allow to be brought up at that time are going to be axes so that the guys can make brush huts. Right. He's going to let him stay for one night, and then he wants the army to be ready to move on the morning of the 14th at 4 a.m. And he says Washington's orders to the officers are, he calls all of the colonels in the army together and orders them to have provisions drawn and cooked for tomorrow and the next day, and a gill of whiskey issued to every officer, soldier, and wagoner. The weather likely fair tomorrow. The army is to be ready to march at 4 o'clock a.m.
So how did he know the weather was going to be likely fair tomorrow? Was this just like...
Don't know. That's his forecast.
Okay.
Right? So maybe it's just,
wishful thinking?
Wishful,
or was this...
an old, farmer and woodsman's sense of things that tomorrow is going to be fair.
All right.
But unfortunately, Parker, his forecast is dead wrong.
So he's a meteorologist. He's a modern meteorologist.
This is the first meteorological...
He's just wrong.
Yeah, he's just wrong. They wake up and it's...
Except the consequences for him matter. Meteorologists missed today and we're
still
just
get a
mad at them.
paycheck.
And they're like, whatever.
Whatever,
it rained.
It's just our problem today. But for him, it's
like however many people are in his army's problem.
Right. So they wake up on the morning of the 14th and it's torrential downpours and still really chilly temperatures. The 15th is cold and rainy. Washington at that point is starting to get really antsy. He wants the tents to be sent to Valley Forge that day for the convenience of the soldiers and be pitched in advance. So, but the weather just won't budge, and he can't even move the wagons. As we're getting close to December 18th, that is a day that Congress had called for in November to be a national day of Thanksgiving.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
So Washington's not going to be able to move on the 18th because this Thanksgiving service has to take place in the camp itself. After that service is over... Washington, yeah. And like,
I would have said,
but no, hold on. Just earlier in this episode, we got all the New Englanders who are like, stop, let's talk about it. And Washington's like, we don't have time. He's Bobby Lee. There is no time, right?
There is no time.
But suddenly we're like, but time out. There's a day of thanks. We have to make time.
And I think, and I love Thanksgiving, but you know what? I think I would have said, Congress says, we have to stop now for Thanksgiving, or what? They're like not going to send me supplies.
I will just do what I have to do. Anyway, I was just more laughing at that juxtaposition.
Well, you know what? It is, and it's funny because Joseph Plum Martin writes about this, and he does it in a really tongue-in-cheek kind of fashion.
Oh, as it would be.
And he says, while we lay there was a continental Thanksgiving ordered by Congress, and as the Army had all the cause in the world to be particularly thankful, if not for being well off, at least that it was no worse. We were ordered to participate in it. Like you will sit there. You will be thankful today.
You will be thankful.
Right?
Yes, sir. I'm very thankful, sir.
Yep.
Mandatory fun.
So thankful.
Mandatory thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. He says we had nothing to eat for 2 or 3 days previous, except what the trees of the fields and forests afforded us. But we must now have what Congress said: a sumptuous Thanksgiving to close a year of high living. Which had now nearly been brought to a close. Well, to add something extraordinary to our present stock of provisions, our country, ever mindful of its suffering army, opened her sympathizing heart so wide upon this occasion as to give us something to make the world stare.
Oh, no.
And what do you think it was, reader? Guess. You cannot guess. Be you as much of a Yankee as you will. I will tell you, it gave each and every man half a gill of rice and a whole tablespoon of vinegar.
Oh, yeah. Party at my tent.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get some vinegar and some rice.
I also love that there's just Joseph Plum Martin talking about food.
Yep.
Again.
Yep.
Again.
So I have a perhaps stupid question. Those wagons that they dropped in the river to cross over. Mm-hmm. First question, were these like dilapidated wagons that they didn't need anymore? Or I'm assuming they needed every wagon?
I think you fish them out.
Right.
Or did we fish them? That was my next question.
Right.
Did
and
we actually
I have nothing documented to say the condition. My suspicion is that they got fished out. That they were able to drag them in, use them for this purpose, and they absolutely needed them
because you
back
couldn't.
out.
Here's why I assume that.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
Our Continental Army can't spare anything.
That's right. That's what I was thinking.
A single thing.
I mean, imagine being that dude who, the wagons need repair.
I mean,
you're working on this wagon trying to get it roadworthy, if you will.
All I'm saying is you have to look no further than my job site.
Yeah.
It's being used as a prison because we can't afford a single ship to be used as a prison hulk.
Right.
Like we can't even
Right.
afford a single ship.
Yeah.
So, we can't afford. Are you kidding me, Ken? We can't afford that right now.
No. It's
Yeah.
I would think they had to.
They had,
Yeah, we got to get those wagons out of the river.
That was my thinking too, but I was just like, I mean, maybe those 7 people who died, maybe they were lost getting those out, because I mean, if you have, how many people marching over that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's the size of
we'll do
Washington's
this now.
force?
Okay.
So this
Okay.
is now being debated.
Okay.
For years, the standard figure we were given was it's a force of about 12,000. Right. And that was looking at a number of strength returns for early December. But those strength returns don't jive with what we know the Army's got at White Marsh just a couple weeks before, where it's like 23,000 guys. And, some people want to hold to the 12,000 figure because old numbers die hard, even in light of new evidence.
Sure.
But
Oh, yeah.
the Army that
Yeah,
marches
we're familiar with that.
into Valley Forge, I am now of the thought that it is closer to 18 or 19,000 guys.
Okay.
Okay. All
Right.
right.
So
Okay.
it doesn't mean that the encampment stays at that level all the time. The stuff that was missing from the past was like Morgan's Rifle Corps wasn't counted in the returns. The Dragoons weren't counted in the returns. The artillery wasn't counted in these returns for some reason. Like all those people are in this column moving. Whether or not Washington keeps all of them in the main encampment for the entire time is a different story.
Right.
But the Army that's on the move right now is about 18 to 19,000 guys.
So this is, we call that in the business, quite a few people.
Yeah.
That's what we call it in the business. That's what we call it. Quite a few.
And just, I want to complete the kind of the, I'm painting a picture in my head of this. You have roughly 350 feet, ice, freezing rain.
Yep.
It's miserable. And roughly how wide are one of these wagons? Just, 8 feet wide, maybe?
6 to 8 feet.
6 to 8
I
feet
think,
wide?
depending, yeah.
So that is literally good. Yeah, that's going to take.
Yeah.
That's going to be absolutely the
Right.
most miserable.
And who
thing.
knows what those fence rails look like too? They may not be the really flat ones. Like
Yeah.
these could be split fence rails that are triangulated, right?
Right.
So it's a freaking mess.
that is going to be the hardest 350 feet you've probably ever walked in your life.
Yeah.
And you've been in the Army for a while.
Maybe.
That's going to be really hard to
tough.
maintain.
I'm glad I don't have to do it.
Yeah, that's a big. And now
And whatever campaigner group is out there putting that one together, no.
Right.
No.
When I eventually write this book that's going to be
Yeah.
the ultimate Valley Forge guide that encompasses not just the encampment but all the stuff surrounding it,
Yeah.
that's going to be in
Yes.
there. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Great.
yeah.
So next time we catch up with you, so you gotta, because I want to talk to you soon, so you got to get writing.
Yeah, I do.
Get it done.
We got a book to shill for you.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's right.
So the 18th, you have to imagine that most of the Army is in a pretty foul mood, and that Washington himself is probably sitting there.
But they just
saying,
had Thanksgiving. What's
yeah,
going on?
Like, what the hell are we doing?
They just had all this vinegar. I don't understand.
Vinegar, rice. They should be everybody's full of piss and vinegar.
I was gonna
That's
say
exactly
the
what
problem
Congress
is
gave
that
them,
rice turned into piss. Now
Yeah,
it's piss
that's
and
right.
vinegar. They're
So,
angry.
That's it.
It's cold. They're naked and starving. Remember Jesus.
So, finally, the weather has broken, and on the morning of the 19th, early, Washington is going to get these guys on the road to Valley Forge. The problem with the roads, even though it's going to be a fairly short distance for them to get from the Gulf, where they'd been for about a week, 6 days at that point, is that the weather with the freeze and the thaw has turned all of the muddy roads into ridges of frozen dirt, stone, and ice.
Yeah.
And when you've got an army that is probably at least 60 to 70% shoeless, these guys are just slashing their feet.
Yeah.
Of course.
Like
yes.
every time that they walk, it's not an exaggeration with the bloody footprints in the snow. So this march is painful, it's slow, it's arduous, especially for those guys who don't have shoes. The Army will finally arrive at Valley Forge in the late afternoon as we're approaching dark. And again, Joseph Plum Martin provides us with a little color commentary about the day of his arrival. He says, the Army was now not only starved, but naked. The greatest part were not only shirtless and barefoot, but destitute of all their clothing, especially blankets. I procured a small piece of raw cowhide and made myself a pair of moccasins, which kept my feet from the frozen ground. Although, as I well remember, the hard edges so galled my ankles while on a march, it was with much difficulty and pain that I could wear them afterwards. But the only alternative I had was to endure this inconvenience. were to go barefoot, as hundreds of my companions had to, till they might be tracked by their blood upon the rough, frozen ground. When we arrived at Valley Forge in the evening, it was dark. There was no water to be found, and I was perishing with thirst. I searched for water till I was weary. Came to my tent without finding any. Fatigue and thirst joined with hunger almost made me desperate. I felt at that instant as if I would have taken victual or drink from the best friend I had on earth by force. I am not writing fiction. All are sober realities.
We're getting desperate.
It's bad. It's bad.
Like we're entering that bleak midwinter vibe.
Yeah, it's less than a week before Christmas. When they move into Valley Forge, the engineers have scoped this place under Louis Lebec de Prel Duportail, Washington's French officer who's the chief of engineers. And Duportail has scoped out the environment and laid out where he thinks that these guys should encamp, but there's no infrastructure, right? There's nothing there at all for them to sort of just move into existing structures. And keeping in mind that, clothing, food, tools are in short supply. Men who are being issued axes, at this period in time in December, there are accounts of them jokingly saying the edges are leaden. The axes won't cut anything. That the shovels are falling apart because they're so rusted out that they're almost useless to them. And they get to this open landscape, and they are shown where they're supposed to go. The Army had previously, every regiment had been instructed. Its colonel was told, divide your regiment into squads of 12. Because when we get to where we're going to show these guys where they need to start to build, and 12 men are going to work together to build a hut. One of the reasons Washington really liked, he likes Valley Forge, easily defensible, places in the shape of roughly of a triangle. If you go there and you drive it, we start our tours at the tip of the triangle on Muhlenberg's brigade where those guys were. That's an outer line of defense that runs south by southwest about 2 3/4 miles. It's the only open draw of assault, but it is good sloping ground that rises up to meet the line where the encampment's going to be. You get to this short leg of the triangle, you've got Valley Creek and Mount Joy and Mount Misery up on either side of that, right? So you've got natural obstructions there, good defense because of the hills. The third leg of the triangle is about 2.5 miles. That's bounded the entire way by the Schuylkill River, and there are high bluffs above the Schuylkill. So the south by southwest ridge is going to be this place where a lot of the huts are going to go. And this is because, look, this is our weak point. We're going to want to put a bunch of guys here. And then Washington will create defense in depth by having an inner line of defense on Mount Joy. What's really interesting, and I was just thinking about this the other day when I was giving a tour, Muhlenberg's brigade is full of guys who have served with Washington in the Mid-Atlantic region and been through this whole Philadelphia campaign. But if you look at the outer line of defense and all the brigades Washington starts to stack in this weak point, after Muhlenberg, it's Whedon, who's also there during the Philadelphia campaign in the Mid-Atlantic. But then it's Learned, Patterson, Glover, and Poor. All of those guys were up in Saratoga.
Yeah.
So what Washington, I think, is doing here, which is pretty smart, is he's got a couple of veteran, largely Virginia brigades on this salient tip point, this area, to anchor that. But then he's taking troops that, and this is just a Ken Gavin opinion because I can't just completely document this yet, but I think he views those troops as fresher. Those guys had not gone through the arduous of the Philadelphia campaign. They've been with the Army a shorter period of time, and even though they're experiencing these supply issues, their experience during the Saratoga campaign had been markedly different. So I think that's why he's putting them in a spot that he sees as a danger flash zone, because they're going to be fresher. Hut construction process, when those guys get there and they've been divided into their squads, they're given very loose instructions. And the instructions that they're given for how to build these things, it makes IKEA's instruction pamphlets look like PhD dissertations. Yeah, right. It's like,
that's great.
It's like, here's the size. Here's your little picture. Go build.
Right.
And
sometimes, though, to be frank, I'd prefer that.
Simple is better.
It's like, to be honest, just give me what it looks like and let me figure it out.
Yeah.
So back in the day, in
Washington handed out hex wrenches. He said, good luck. He said, "Good luck, everyone."
So when they walk into Valley Forge, you use the term that it was open ground.
When he walked into Valley Forge, sorry. Just when you said it like that, it just came. I was inspired.
That is a great opening to a song. Maybe I'll have to work on that.
Okay.
When they walk into Valley Forge, mentioned it's open ground. As a good New England boy myself, I'm very familiar with one fact that some of visitors, some of our listeners, may not be familiar with. Open ground in the wintertime is worse than the woods in the wintertime.
It can be. Yeah.
My question is how. So I've been there. There. In modern time, it's pretty open. Is what we're seeing in a modern scale? Right. Is that pretty much what it was like back then? Or was it a little bit more wooded?
It's actually less wooded.
It's actually less wooded.
Less wooded. Yeah. One of the reasons.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. One of the reasons that Washington really likes this site is he's got this hyper consciousness of not impacting the civilians negatively.
Okay.
Or if he's going to have civilian impact, to minimize that as much as he can. Valley Forge has somewhere between 14 and 16 families living in that area. But that's not hundreds, it's not thousands. And he'll take measures as they move into the course of the encampment to set up secured markets where the civilians can sell to the army, markets where prices are fixed. So he's helping the troops. They're not going to get, hornswoggled, but he's also providing security details to guard the markets. Okay. And he's moving them on the outskirts of the encampment so that nobody's pilfering things from the civilians. He wants this to be a symbiotic relationship to the extent possible. But to your question, the landscape that's there is actually not very wooded because of the farm fields, but also the name Valley Forge. That name is in existence for at least 20 years before the Army gets there. Okay. And that's because there are 2 iron forges, a sawmill, and a grist mill that are operating on Valley Creek.
There's nothing there. All the timber's gone.
They're going, the timber's been used up for charcoal. So there are some woodlots, the huts, and I'll talk a little bit more about them in a second, but our estimates, there are probably somewhere around 2,000 huts and maybe a couple hundred other ancillary structures that are built during the course of the encampment. Okay.
It's a city.
It's a city.
It's a city.
Well, by the time the encampment's over, it's the third largest city in the country.
Wow.
Like, that's what they end up building.
Wow.
Right? Is that the foundational infrastructure of where the modern growth comes from?
No. Not necessarily.
Hey, we're getting a call on an iPad.
Wow. Are we taking callers now?
That was fancy. No, God.
That's that would be funny.
It just,
I have no idea who that was. Didn't actually come through with a.
That's great. You should have answered. You should have put him on live.
You could have. Yeah.
Caller, you're on the air.
It's Lou from Dundalk.
Yes. Oh, hey, Lou.
Yeah, that is non-coherent caller.
Got high on Old Bay.
Right, exactly.
That's right. Snorting Old Bay.
Cough syrup, drinking Old Bay, snorting Dundalk. Anyway. So in Philly, in this place outside of Philly.
So in this place.
So before we get back into that, do we just have to encamp in places with cool names? Is Washington really just like, look, the camp has to go there? It's called Valley Forge.
I mean, it's ready made, right? Yeah. It's
like, you want to be in Norris? No,
you want to be in Norristown.
No, I don't want to be in Norristown. Valley Forge.
Valley Forge. Yeah, it's got a nice ring to it.
I mean, it's cool. It's iconic.
I don't know if we ever talked about why winter encampments are important. But
let's do it then.
Like, why are they doing this? Why aren't they fighting, right? That sort of thing.
You can't move.
And I think for most people, and a lot of visitors I get, and you can't move. A lot of visitors I get are under this misconception that, like, Valley Forge is the only time Washington did this.
Oh.
And you have to break that down for them because it all goes back to logistics, transportation, supply. 18th century North America, our greatest road at the outbreak of revolution is the post road, how the mail gets from Boston to Savannah. Right. It's about, at its widest point, as wide as maybe a yellow school bus. There are no bridges that are permanent over major river crossings. There are other road networks that may be smaller. There are ferries, sure, all that kind of stuff. But if you've got an army like Washington's, 20,000 troops roughly, maybe a little bit more than that, and you get out in the winter, and what if your weather forecast is wrong? Like, he thought December 14th was going to be a good day.
It's probably wrong, Ken.
It's probably wrong. And you get them stuck. Your enemy sees you, and a smaller enemy is going to chew you up in the tail, or they're going to start to pick off your supplies. Right. So you've got that difficulty of movement. You need to be in a place where you can be reasonably secure and reasonably solidified until the weather improves, and it's better for campaigning. And it's not just the logistics and supply for the guys. What most people don't think about is, like, how do the supplies move? How does the artillery move? We need draft animals, so oxen or horse, which are going to require a ton of forage. And, well, that's in short supply during the winter. And transportation becomes more difficult. It becomes more expensive. Just like in heightened driving seasons, gas prices go up.
Right.
Where are you getting forage? How much is it going to cost you? It's difficult to do those types of things. So it can be dangerous. It can be expensive for armies to try to move on a massive scale. It doesn't mean that warfare stops. It continues on a limited scale, and sometimes a lot more brutal and harsh.
Right.
You know, the winter of 76, 77, when Washington's sending raiding parties throughout New Jersey to harass the British supply lines,
Right.
that stuff is like brutal guerrilla war.
Right.
Right. So, you know, so this has to happen for a reason. It's 8 years, 8 winter encampments. Valley Forge happens to be one of the most famous. So the huts that they're going to construct, Washington wants them to be 14 feet wide, 16 feet long, and about 6 to 6.5 feet tall in the gable. He is going to offer a prize in $12 in gold to the squad in every regiment that completes the hut the fastest in the most expeditious manner.
These are low ceilings.
These are low ceilings, very. And I think part of that goes back to, we know we're low on wood here.
Right.
The records will tell us by the end of the encampment, they are going one way, in some instances 8 miles for firewood.
Yikes.
You've got 2,000 structures. And it's also, I think, why Washington early on is offering a prize of $100 in gold for the person who develops the cheapest substitute for slabbed roofing.
Oh, wow.
We don't have any record of that being claimed, but he's offering it early. So what we can infer from that is that there's slab roofing for sure, but there's also probably a good degree of pine bough that is stretched over rafters. If there are tents that are almost shot and beyond service just to get something up there, guys are doing that. That there's sod, we know, going up on rafters in a lot of instances that these guys are using. The Park Service estimates today, and this is a wild stat for ecological impact.
Okay.
2,000 huts. If you factor in the construction, maintenance, repair, and the fuel needs.
Yeah.
And Washington wants 2 fires for every hut. He ideally wants 1 inside for eating, 1 outside for cooking. We estimate that somewhere between 60 to 80 mature trees per hut are consumed. And that's in an area
Over the course of that winter.
over the course of that 6-month encampment.
And these are old growth, old forests.
Old growth,
So these
old
are the
forest.
big ones.
These are the big boys.
So is there a reason why he wants a separate cooking fire than the heating one? Is it just to keep smoke out? Or
No,
is
it's a hygiene thing.
Okay.
And that rule's rarely being followed, but it's
Of course.
but it's a hygiene thing.
Okay.
Thomas Paine, who was there early on in the encampment.
He was there. That's right.
Right?
Yes.
He's there as an observer, and he has a great quote. He says, "I was there when the Army first began to build huts. They appeared to me like a family of beavers, everyone busy, some carrying logs, others mud, and the rest plastering them together, a curious collection of buildings in a true rustic order."
Wow.
When you go there today, the huts that you see are all very like cookie cutter,
Yep.
right? And the Park Service has to build for stability. So that's telephone poles, that's wire mesh, it's concrete daubing in between. That's not how they built. They were
Correct.
building
Yeah.
for expedition and to get shelter over their heads, because until they do, they're in a mid-December Pennsylvania winter, and they're probably got no shelter whatsoever. John Lawrence writes about the North Carolinians and says, "The North Carolinians are the most backwards in their buildings and want for sufficient energy to exert themselves once for all. They will be exposed to lasting evils." I think you take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, because North Carolina and South Carolina split in 1712. There's a rivalry there to this day in some ways, but it's pretty fresh in the 1770s. But Lawrence makes a good point about something the archaeology tells us about the huts that has been looked at there by the Park Service. North Carolinians weren't digging foundations.
On-grade structures.
On-grade structures, because they deal with North Carolina winters.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They don't know what they're
not
walking
worth-
into.
yeah.
You get onto the outer line where some of those Massachusetts guys are. They were finding evidence that foundations were sometimes as much as 4 feet deep.
Wow.
Those Massachusetts guys were probably just burying themselves
They were
in the
building
ground.
homes.
It was like a little prairie dog.
They're building homes.
Yeah.
They're staying.
Yeah. And they were sunk, so it
Yeah.
was like popping out like prairie dogs of that thing, but they're trying to insulate it.
Yeah.
But that's, I was saying,
Right.
from a logical standpoint,
Yeah.
though, they're going to have a much better deal with their fire.
Oh,
on the
100%.
inside.
Yeah, they're
The
used to it at this point.
ground. I forget.
Well, I mean, North Carolina, right? They're used to like the hurricanes, so probably they were.
Well, not
building
all of North
they're,
Carolina.
They're probably building their huts on little stilts, right? Just
Yeah,
in
they're
case,
coastal
right?
Carolinians.
Yeah, they're the Hatteras.
Plenty of tape over the doors and
The-
big X shape. Yeah.
You know, you joke. So the Hyde County Regiment in '79 gets involved in some pretty serious coastal fighting down there.
Oh,
It's a pretty
okay.
good story.
Okay.
But anyway, so no. So what I want to ask, or not what I want to ask, what I wanted to point out a couple of years ago, something I learned is like even in like the winter, if you go down to a certain depth in the ground, it's just like around 55 degrees. So the cold air like that, you could actually warm up by getting down into the earth. So like, those Massachusetts guys who endure Massachusetts winters definitely knew what they were up to.
They did.
And, and the Carolinians that you're talking about, without knowing anything about the specificity of where they're coming from, are they more Eastern than Western? To me, that sounds like they're more Eastern Carolinians, because the Western guys, they know what's up in the winter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, they know what's happening.
Yeah.
If you're out near the modern day, like, Statesville area, out in the Smokies and all that, like, you get cold. I get the impression, Ken, the way you just kind of described that is, in 2,000 huts, we could have nearly 2,000 different designs.
Yeah, and really, I think it was tolerated. When you get to Morristown later in the war, if things are off by 6 inches or they're not built to the specification the way that they're supposed to be, the officers are ordering guys to knock the huts down and rebuild them. I think at this point there was a little bit of sacrifice on the discipline just to get these guys under shelter. Washington is really keenly aware for the couple of months leading up to this encampment that he wants the winter to be a time where he can attend to the greatest degree possible to the comfort of the troops and then to the organization of the Army and to the training of the Army. But he's got to get them somewhere and try to get them supplied and get them comfortable first. But, the variations also speak to the way the Army is structured in the 18th century, in that it's geographic in a lot of ways. Unlike today, where if somebody enlisted, they could end up in a company of infantry with guys from all over the place in the country.
Right.
Much like the American Civil War, you're enlisting with people from your hometown.
Right.
The brigade is from your state. You have not traveled far from home because why would you? Vacations aren't a thing. So you really operate.
Thank God for being a modern person.
Yeah.
I love vacation.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
It's modern dentistry and vacations and all that kind of stuff.
You know what I'm taking on vacation? About that much rice and about that much vinegar.
Calm down, Parker. Jesus.
It's gonna be a party.
Ken, this guy over here raging on vacation. Just take some water with you. Jesus.
Yeah.
Just cook the rice and the vinegar.
I'm not as young as I used to be, boys. I hope I can handle all that rice and vinegar.
So yeah, and the way that if you go there today and you'll see the examples of the Muhlenberg Brigade, they are in each street across from one another, and the archaeology does tell us that much is followed.
Okay.
So that they were on company streets like that. Enlisted personnel are 12 to a hut. Non-coms are 12 to a hut. And the officers of the regiment have a row of huts that's behind. So you would see... There I go with that damn microphone again. You've got it.
So it's there, right? Like,
yeah,
you've hit it like 3 times.
I know. Thank you for not pointing it out earlier. There's like company street, and so huts facing one another, and then behind it is where you have the row of officers.
Are the officers live in solo, or are they at least go in two?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Washington's initial orders are going to say that in terms of officers working downwards, one general officer to a hut. But in reality, most of the general officers are going to be renting private homes and spending some time in huts. Field grade officers of a regiment, so colonel, lieutenant colonel, and major, if all those guys are there, they share a hut. The staff officers of a regiment, they share a hut. And then the commissioned officers of a single company share a hut, right? So the officers do get a little bit more space. The officers really aren't building their own huts. They've got enlisted personnel doing it.
Sure.
And it is more comfortable in there based on theirs number 4. There's, the accounts I've seen that talk about flooring being laid or windows being cut. And when the enlisted huts are dirt floors, there's no windows in there. Right. Absolutely. The appearance of the huts was going to change over time during the encampment as well, because when you get into warmer weather, when sickness starts to increase, one of the things Washington tries to do to combat that is he orders the chinking knocked out of all the huts. This is in March, right? And on that big open plain where it's windy, right?
Yeah.
All the chinking knocked out and the huts smoked with sulfur. And then you can redaub them.
So it's like still cold, bro.
Still cold. It's like, thanks a lot for the sulfur smoke out.
Yeah.
And I got a couple of really cold ass nights because there's wind blowing through this thing.
It is cold in the mid-Atlantic in March.
Yeah.
And I can tell
especially
you,
up there with that wind just blowing.
Dude, I've done living history there in December, and when that wind blows, it's wicked. It's even wicked in the spring when I do tours up there.
Sure.
It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
What a terrible time to redaub, I guess. But I mean, if you have to, there had to be a logic.
But look, damned if you do, damned if you don't, right?
Yeah,
like you gotta do something with the sickness.
So do we know, I guess 2 questions. Do we know where some of these, you mentioned that some of these people were renting houses. Mm-hmm. do we know where they were renting, and
Yes.
do any of those houses still stand?
Yes, they do.
Oh,
A number of them still do stand. The Park Service map does a very good job of showing the structures that general officers rented. Some of them are Park Service properties. Some of them are private homes. The Park Service inside the boundaries of the park itself, the only one that is open to the public right now is the Potts House, which was Washington's headquarters, which I'll talk
That
about
was
in a little
my
bit.
third question. I
Right.
was wondering where
Yeah.
he was going to stay.
So
Okay.
the Varnum, Brigadier General James Varnum from Rhode Island, he's quartered in the home of David and Elizabeth Stevens.
Okay.
That house is right near the von Steuben statue. You can go walk up to it, look in the windows, but there's not enough Park Service staff to have that building open right now, which is a shame because I remember going in there as a kid, and that is the oldest home on park property. That is, I've seen varying estimates between 1711 and 1725. So one of the
wow.
it's a really cool structure, and it stayed in the Stevens family until the 1930s. When
That is amazing.
yeah, it's cool, and it's a cool story with it there. You know, one of the things Washington says to the general officers about utilizing civilian properties to stay, remembering the outrage over the Quartering Act in Boston, they have to do a couple of things, right? So they have to get permission from the owner, and they also have to pay, and they cannot pay in continental script. It's got to be in specie of some kind. So when Varnum goes to rent the Stevens house, the Stevens family are members of the Society of Friends, and they agree to let Varnum rent, but they won't leave. So for the majority of the time that Varnum is there, you've got the Stevens family living on one floor of the house, and Varnum and his entire staff are on another floor of the house, which is kind of a cool thing.
Busy.
It's a very, very busy house.
Wow.
In addition to the huts, when we think about like other construction projects that are important, the defenses of the encampment are insanely important. Like they have to be worked on. Washington's engineer chief, Louis Becteprel Duportail, is constantly hemming and hawing at Washington about the importance of designating personnel to work on the defenses, to dig the trenches, to start making the abattis, the fray, the chevaux de frise. And that even fits into how when the huts are constructed, when logs are felled, that all takes place under the supervision of officers. And the men are instructed that for every tree you fell, you cut 16 to 18 foot portions. And that's for the sides of the huts, right? So you've got a 16 to 18 foot log.
Yep.
Any of the growth that's coming off the sides, you have to cut that too. You cannot keep it for firewood.
No, that's your chevaux de frise.
Yep,
That's all
absolutely.
your abattis and all that stuff.
All
I'm
of that
sorry, did
stuff-
we just become the French Things podcast? What the actual F was
So
that?
a chevaux de frise is so imagine like the log,
Uh-huh.
but it's got the X's of the spiked trees through it.
Yeah.
Looks like the
Oh, that's what
that's a
is.
chevaux de frise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
A Chevrolet de Frise.
Chevrolet de Frise.
Chevrolet de Frise.
So,
Chevy de Frise.
I was listening to something. It just an old memory just kind of clicked in, and I think we've all seen those.
No, I don't.
Well, the documentaries or whatever, and sometimes they're critical of the officers for like, oh, they were renting a house and they were living the high life, blah 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 blah. I actually don't have a problem with that because it saves some of the timber for some of the other people who need to build a house there on the extra ground.
I mean,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm sure Joseph Plum Martin was like, "Thanks for the wood,
Yeah,
George."
great.
Well, I mean, but you know what I'm saying, though. I mean, it's
I mean,
not.
it's
To me, I'm not offended by the fact that these guys
they
paid for
they weren't,
lodging.
and you don't see a lot of. I have never actually seen not one writing where an enlisted soldier is complaining that a general officer is in a home.
There you go.
I think they're more grateful for the fact that they're there, right?
Yeah.
And Washington, if he wanted to,
He could have gone home.
he could have gone home.
Yeah.
And he didn't. He stayed there. And, Washington goes back to Mount Vernon during the entire course of the 8-year war twice, and he's there for 10 days or less total, right? And part of that's like, Yorktown's on the way.
Yeah,
It's
he
gonna pop off.
basically doesn't see Martha for like 8 years of his life.
She comes to every winter encampment
right,
to see him, but he doesn't go to see her.
right.
And there's part of it too where it's an expected part of class structure.
Yeah.
Words can be a funny thing, how they change meaning over time. Like if we were having a conversation today and you said to me, Parker, like that asshole was so condescending to me.
Right.
Like condescending has a negative connotation. In the 18th century, condescension does not have a negative connotation.
That's interesting.
If you were condescended to, it meant that one of your social superiors had addressed you in a respectful and appropriate manner. So he condescended to speak to you. So that changes over time, but
I want to use that at work.
it's a good example.
So relating to this, something I learned.
I'm going to condescend on people.
Something I learned over the last couple of years, going to the other empire of this moment, the French. They actually have a legitimate sort of class and fashion police to enforce these sort of societal. Like, hey, if you're a common person, not only are you a common person, but you have to like legally dress like one. Like you can't dress fancy like that. So there is this societal just expectation of just where we're supposed to be, and they're where they're supposed to be. And I guess plus they probably got bigger stuff to worry about than bitching about the officers. I mean, they're hungry, and they're probably barking at the commissaries and the victuals. I mean, like, where the fuck's the food?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not worried about Washington.
That's really, I love that.
Because at the end of the day, Washington can't make food appear.
Right.
No. And as much as he'd like to, he can't. The other construction project that's really, and by the way, the defenses, they're going to work on those the entire time the Army's there. It's basically never completed.
Right.
But the other thing that's going to be really important and that Duportail is constantly in Washington's ear about is a bridge being constructed over the north side of the Schuylkill River. Right. So if you think about the encampment and the road networks that exist, there are 4 roads that either intersect it or originate in the camp. So if Washington's troops are overrun and they need to get out, they can move to the west pretty expeditiously. If for some reason they need to move north-northeast, the Schuylkill River is in their way. So they have to fix that problem. And and what's going to end up happening is Washington gets tired of Duportail bitching and moaning about stuff, so he puts John Sullivan in charge.
He was
of the
sitting
bridge.
there because he's French.
He's like, less of this guy, less of this guy.
He's like smoking a long cigarette, just complaining. Oh no, everything is terrible. This is the worst I've ever. I cannot take this.
It's not far from the truth, Parker.
I'm so glad that image is in my head now.
It's not far from the truth.
I'm picturing that guy. I don't know if you're familiar with the show Gilmore Girls or not, but I'm picturing. Okay.
Oh yeah.
What's his face?
The guy who works the desk.
It is my ennui. yeah. Whatever his name is. What's his name?
I don't know.
I need to apologize to my wife now. I forgot his name.
Is it Marcel?
I don't know.
That could be it. I apologize to the Gilmore Girl fandom out there that I just forgot the name.
Hey.
Michelle.
I was close. Marcel.
Yep.
Hey, you know what? At this point, since we're there, you got to shout out the Battle of Stars Hollow.
The Battle of
my
Stars.
God, what a great episode.
When are we going to do the show on that?
When they report to the green, but the British never
come.
Yeah. Yeah,
is this the coolest or the most uncool moment in the history of this show where we all just admitted we watched the Gilmore Girls?
This yeah. I think we all just shared something very special.
Not one, not two. All three of us in this room knew what we were talking about instantly.
Now I've got to get you on the Star Trek train.
Listen, man, I was in a metal band. I was cool. All right? I used to shred. So, all right.
So the bridge, Sullivan takes it over. That gets priority. It ends up being built in about a month. We get some really good descriptions of this bridge, which is going to allow for, egress if they need it, but it also allows Washington for commerce and communication.
Yeah, I was going to say supply coming in the other way.
Supply coming in and out. And for his dragoons to move out and militia to be over there patrolling the other side of the river. So, all right, I'll talk about this first. So, because if you think about Washington's defensive positioning at Valley Forge, earlier in our first episode, I talked about why that was important, sealing off British access to the West, where economic and political targets are. If Washington were just to have put the corpus of his army at Valley Forge, it wouldn't matter because you just move around them.
Yeah.
Right? You would find a different way. So what he does is actually create something that I envision as a crescent moon. He takes, not long after they get there, he tells Smallwood, you're going to go down to Wilmington with the Maryland and Delaware guys. And I want you to spread out down there and keep an eye on that port city. So he stretches out towards Wilmington that way, and then he uses dragoons and all the Pennsylvania militia, because no militia ever camp at Valley Forge. He gets them on the other side of the Schuylkill River, and he stretches them north and east of Trenton. So he's got this crescent moon that covers Trenton to Wilmington, and the fat corpus is at Valley Forge. And that's how he creates this effective cord and seal that encircles the British off.
It also gives the British the impression that his force is bigger than it is because they keep running into it over a wider
everywhere.
place on the map. Yeah, they're running into it in lots of places.
It's kind of like Wagons East when they're like, why are you circling the wagons? Why don't you square the wagons? Make the British go all the way around.
So,
Oh my God.
Parker, that was a Wagons East reference.
That was the Wagons East
Hell
reference. Yeah.
John Candy's
John,
last
hey,
film.
Shut up.
R.I.P. John Candy.
R.I.P. John Candy.
So the best descriptions that we have of that bridge actually come to us from a couple of prisoners of war. Because after the encampment was over in June of 78, the life that it gets for a little while is as a general hospital for guys who are too sick to move or too immobilized to move with the main army. But then it becomes a temporary POW camp for the convention army. So you've got British POWs and Braunschweigers who are up at Saratoga getting parceled out all over the place. Mm-hmm. They stop at Valley Forge for a while. So Lieutenant August Dubois of the Regiment Prince Friedrich says he's there in December of 1778. He says, we crossed the Schuylkill on the Sullivan Bridge, which is 228 paces long and rests on 9 wooden pillars. The current is very swift, on account of which fact many stones had to be sunk to keep the pillars in place. So you think about that construction project for a minute, like the Schuylkill has a swift current there. The guys who are building it are doing it in December and January, which means your ass is going in the river.
Yeah, yeah.
To push in pylons, to sink boxes of stone. And that's how they were doing this. Like, the river defenses near Fort Mifflin, when they sunk those huge crates of stone with naval fray, they were using the same type of premise here, but just sinking posts like that and then surrounding with more stone. But how long, these guys are freezing and poorly clad and malnourished as hell, and they're working in cold water in December and January to build this damn bridge.
I forget which war, if it's this war or the Civil War, but there's an account of people building a bridge in winter conditions, and these guys are basically rotating in and out every 40 seconds. I mean, like, you can't be in the water that long. You risk your life.
Is that when Jackson's trying to blow up that dam?
It might be dam number 5.
Dam 5.
It might be dam 5. And I'm failing Rob, my buddy, right now. But I think what I'm thinking about is that. I think you're right. It's something Jackson related, either at dam 5 or Bath Romney, but it's the...
Dam 5 sounds really familiar.
But these guys are just like, they're rotating like almost a minute max type of thing. Like, just because you can't be in that water.
It'll kill you.
That is the fastest way probably to get dead.
Well, what my brain is thinking is, it's just like, how many guys do you have working on this project?
Several hundred on rotations.
Right.
Washington sees the need to get as much personnel as possible. And interestingly, one of the elements that he ends up pulling was during the Philadelphia campaign, the Pennsylvania State Navy was complaining they didn't have enough personnel to man the row galleys.
Sure.
So they took Continental Infantry to do it, and then never gave them back. Like,
this is called a press gang. Haven't you heard of it? You're in the Navy now. Jesus.
And you can imagine for some of those infantry guys are probably like,
what?
River War's over. I don't know that we really need to go back all that quickly.
Yeah.
But Washington, like, it's.
Are you sure this little hamlet in this inlet's not secure? Because our gunboat could just keep going around.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
cover it again.
That little island has a lot of strategic value.
What was that? Let's paddle over there.
So several hundred between Sullivan's infantry detailed guys and then this infantry that they get back from the PA State Navy. Thomas Anbury from the 47th Regiment of Foot also crosses this bridge, and I love what he has to say. He says, I imagine it was as he's a prisoner, I imagine it was the intention of the Americans that this bridge should remain as a triumphant memento, for in the center of every arch is engraved in the wood the names of the principal generals in their country. And in the middle arch was General Washington's, with the date of the year the bridge was built to preserve communication and to favor retreat in case they were compelled to quit their encampment. Which, like, that gives you a great visual of this thing. John Sullivan was really proud of it. He said that it would benefit Pennsylvanians until the timbers decayed. But by 1779, just to let you know what happens to this bridge.
The timbers had decayed.
Well, no, Pennsylvania starts pulling it apart. They're like, it's got no more value strategically. We don't need it, and we need wood to complete Fort Mifflin. So,
did they save any piece of it at all?
No, it goes to Fort Mifflin.
Unfortunately, they pull off most of the planking, and then there's a little monument down there today. It's hard to get to, but it tells you that the remainder of the original bridge was destroyed by freshets in the spring of 1779. Oh. And there have been monuments going up in that location since the 1840s. That one up in the 1840s to say where the bridge was, it got washed away. Like, local fishermen knew, all that sort of thing. There's a modern monument today, and the Park Service has a constructed pathway bridge you can walk over
Oh.
if you go over there, which is fairly new within the past 10 years.
Okay.
Which is kind of nice. So, but the bridge is going to be really important. While Washington is dealing with all this, he's also still dealing with political pressures, even though they're technically in their winter encampment. Pennsylvania, as you'll recall, had really harped on him about defending the area of the Capitol, constabulary force. Pennsylvania is still pushing at him to go assault the works of the city at this point. They're looking back to the example of Trenton the winter before, and they're saying, well, look, if you could surprise the Hessian outpost at Trenton, you could attack the city of Philadelphia.
He's like, guys, you're missing the key point that there was a fucking river involved that they weren't expecting me to cross.
Yep.
Coming across land's a little different.
Yep. And
Washington talks like that, of course.
I-
Hard
know,
F-bomb.
Yeah.
you got to imagine that he did.
I don't know.
He's
He's so weird. For a man that says Providence as much as he does, I doubt he said the F word. And if he did, he probably was weird about it afterwards. He probably wasn't confident when he said it, and then he was like awkward. He's like, I'm sorry.
I don't give a...
And he's like, I'm sorry. Sorry, Martha or Jim or whoever was in the room
Alexander
with him.
Hamilton.
Yeah.
Go ahead, you can say it.
Yeah, say
I'm
it.
the only one here. He's
Hamilton's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Say it.
Our founding
Say
fathers
it.
are weird.
Say it. Look me in the eyes.
They're
and say
weird.
it.
wow, Hamilton got really aggressive.
Yeah.
He's aggressive about his swear
That's
words.
Lin-Manuel Miranda's like, leave that part out.
Yeah.
We don't. That's us. Rap instead. Rap instead.
Yeah.
Sorry. So
what
Serious Washington.
So Serious Washington looks at this and he puts together a plan, which I really think was done just for the sake of going through the motions.
Okay.
Because his plan is going to call to divide the army into two wings. Sullivan's right wing is going to cross a bridge at the Middle Ferry, which is near where the modern museum, the Philadelphia Museum of Art is today. And he's supposed to drive through the outskirts of town into the city, free prisoners along the way, and then disrupt shipping along the banks of the Delaware. Meanwhile, Sullivan's right wing of the army is supposed to attack head on the British defenses on the northern approaches to the city. There are 11 redoubts there that are interconnected with trenches. Everything is phrased, and there's Abattis in front. It would have been suicidal.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, is Zorro with them? In random vigilante. That's nuts.
Washington writes up the plan and then basically writes to Congress and says, "I formed the divisions, but they couldn't move," and which legitimately is true. So I really think, people.
But he didn't press the issue.
He didn't
hard
press
either.
the issue, and there are people for years who have talked about what would have happened if he had, assaulted the city. I don't think he ever had any intention of doing that.
We'd be flying British flags.
Absolutely.
That's what would have happened if you tried that.
When you think about the conditions and the people, and I really should talk about that a little bit at Valley Forge. The guys are on average somewhere between 5'6" and 5'8". 135 to 145 pounds. The majority, based on the enlistment records, are probably farmers, but there's every other profession you can think of. Lawyers, doctors, shopkeepers, wheelwrights, wainwrights, chandlers, doctors, unskilled laborers, teachers, clerks, bakers, brewers, and even some slaves that are in the army too. Slaves who are attached to the army. It is fairly Anglo-Saxon, but by 18th century standards, the army as a whole is fairly diverse. It is going to contain Catholics, Protestants, Reformed, Lutherans, Jews. We have records of Hanukkah being celebrated at Valley Forge, by a small number of people there. Yeah, those records, which is pretty cool. If you went along the Hut lines, you would have heard most of the languages of Europe being spoken in certain places. You would have heard French, you would have heard Gaelic.
You would have heard Irish, which is not the same as Gaelic.
Yeah.
A melting pot from the very beginning.
Pot. I tell when we do tours up at Muhlenberg, when I ask people to start because they all have this image of it's like a white bread army.
Yeah, of course.
And everybody kind of sounds like them and looks like them. And
we're in our immigrant era.
We are.
It lasts a long time, but basically from the time we start building these colonies through almost the early 20th century, we're in our immigrant era.
Yeah. And people forget that. when we get to Muhlenberg, I tell them, I said, all right, think about this. And I say, jetzt wir sind in der Winterlager der Muhlenberg-Brigade.
Right.
You know, and mit Soldaten am Pennsylvania.
And they're like, I'm sorry there, buddy. Can you speak Americanese all right here? Please, come on now.
This is America.
Speak English.
Yeah. So, and you you get that look from people.
I'm sure.
You do. Yeah. And, you know, I've exhausted most of my German by the time I go through this little speech, and they're like, and I said, look, here's what I told you. You're in the area now of Muhlenberg's winter encampment. Soldiers from Pennsylvania, Virginia, Maryland. These men were sick. Yeah. They were hungry. They were cold.
They were German.
Right? But you make the point of what you hear here is this, and it gives you good inroads to talk about those immigrant experiences in the 18th century, which for the Germanics, particularly in Pennsylvania, aren't always positive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of unfortunately fitting the pattern that you can relate to over time of immigrant populations being looked down upon until we need them for something. And then it's like, well, they've kind of earned their stripes. Right. And you can have that very valuable discussion about how time periods can connect with one another through these threads.
Right.
So, you know, I want them to know it's not just a bunch of white dudes hanging out. And the other thing that I like to talk about there when we talk about the people, two other points. James Mitchell Varnum, who commands that Rhode Island brigade, he does a thing that has a catalytic spark. So we talked about the Army in 1777 being largely new recruits. And that all is an outgrowth after the 75 enlistments expire, new guys in 76. Enlistments expire, we're getting to 77. Congress has done something called the 88 Battalion Resolves, where they're going to want each state to recruit new battalions. And they're going to set quotas based on state populations. And Washington actually asks for more than 88 battalions, and it gets bumped up with other additional regiments that are actually the additional regiments where Washington gets to appoint the colonels. But, you know, people have a hard time filling quotas. Mm-hmm. And James Varnum, who's commanding the Rhode Island Brigade, comes up with a plan, and he broaches it to the state legislature and the governor. And this is the short version. He says, look, we're having a hard time. We got slaves here. That's manpower.
Yeah.
What if we utilize the chattel population to try to meet our quotas? And when the war is over, if we win, we have to manumit these people.
Right. Of course.
And we'll compensate their masters for loss of property. So, and I tell people about that, and I just let them sit. And I let them react for a minute quietly. And you get a lot of different looks, right? And I said to them, now look, from a 21st century point of view, if you're a sentient human being, you see why that is problematic for a million reasons. I said, but I want you to come with me for just a minute to the 18th century where there was slavery everywhere, and I want you to focus on the fact of the manumission portion of this and understand that everything that is seen as a progressive movement in society, and if you view the American Revolution as a radical experiment in political and philosophical thought that has the capability, and capability is the key word, to lead not just to the emancipation of human beings, but to the emancipation of human suffering. It could do that, but it's always a progression over time. So what does this guy do? He has an idea for his time that is very progressive, and it takes hold in Rhode Island. And you know, a lot of that recruitment's going to happen early 1778, summer of 1778, but there's still plenty of black troops from Rhode Island and other states serving at Valley Forge. There were about 800 total. But I said, think about that and then look at it as a catalytic moment, because what it does is it has John Lawrence, who's a young South Carolinian, Washington's aide. Lawrence's father is the president of Congress. It prompts Lawrence to write to his father and say, hey, man, look at, this is a paraphrase at this point, like, hey, man, look at what Rhode Island is doing. Dad, we should do that in South Carolina. Right?
South Carolina's like, hell no.
Yeah, well, that's what his dad's advice
hell
is.
no, brother.
Yep.
I bet in 40 some odd years from now.
So South Carolina, not into it. Other colonies, how are they going to react to this sort of manumission sort of? Is it a proposition, or is it just being put forward as like, this is how it's going to be?
No, it's what they're going to do in Rhode Island.
So, but I mean, when other colonies are starting, so let me ask this question.
Yep.
Actually a two-part question.
Sure.
First, more directly related, do other colonies see this as something that they're going to need to start to do?
Not that I've seen. You
Okay.
know, I don't see other colonies necessarily doing the same exact thing. Colonies all over the map, as the war drags on, start doing weird things like increasing bounties,
Okay.
which is going to piss off guys who enlisted earlier who got a smaller bounty. Why are these new guys getting bigger bounties? They're offering, you know, when you get in the 79, 80, in some states, this is a substitute for going to jail.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you know, join the Army. Rhode Island's the one where I've seen the most documentation where they're actively pursuing this kind of thing.
All right.
For me, the interest point has been that there is this young South Carolinian in his early 20s who's fabulously wealthy and has to understand that his family's fortune is built on the backs of slave labor,
Sure.
who is now advocating something that could lead towards emancipation of those individuals. The catalyst thing was always the most important takeaway for me, that this guy who's, and granted, the young Lawrence had taken the tour, he'd been well educated in Europe, so he may have more progressive or liberal lines of thought in tune with the Enlightenment than a lot of other people would, but there was always something there that spoke to me. And all I've ever asked visitors to do was to just think about the progression of change. Like, you can't get to the place where you want to be without some other steps. And, you know, if people were to look back 100 or 150 or 200 years, they're in the future looking back at us.
Right.
They might look at some of the things that we think are good ideas and say, it was kind of, that was milquetoast.
Sure.
You know? So I want them to try to think about it in that light, with the end goal being, don't get overly frustrated when things don't move at the pace you think they should or you want to. Like, you need to work towards the common good for all people. But don't let the pace stop you from moving forward.
Just keep working at it.
Just keep working at it. Right.
So the second question I had is, I'll be honest, at this point, almost entirely irrelevant, but relevant to this moment in the sense that at a point in Washington's assumption of command and his initial organization and trying to sift through what is this New England Army as it becomes a Continental Army and things like that, he dismisses the African-American soldiers that were present at the bridge and at the Green and on the Battle Road and things like that, the Siege of Boston. He dismisses them. In fact, uses kind of terrible language like wretched assistants and things like that to describe what he thinks of these African-American patriots. But if I'm not mistaken, these Rhode Island soldiers that you're talking about, when they arrive, Washington's basically got the, oh, thank God they're here.
Yeah.
Like when these guys roll into the camp, he's like, not a minute too soon. Like, thank God. I'm so happy to see you. Yeah. How things have changed.
Yeah, and you know, it's hard to say whether that's part of a genuine change of heart and mind,
or just the military,
or it's
thank
just
God.
Military necessity,
right?
Or is it a little bit of both? You know, we don't know. We don't know because it's not written, and like the hardest thing to do is to understand another human being's heart entirely.
Or if it was, didn't Martha burn all the letters, and we'll never know? Right.
Yep.
Are you saying that George Washington? That they were there and that he needed them out of necessity?
Oh God! Don't make necessity jokes. Washington's cringing at you right now in his grave at Mount Vernon. He's like, "That's so cringe, bro."
Yeah.
Is that a Fort necessity joke?
We just did necessity earlier this season too.
That was a very poor attempt at a Fort necessity joke.
Right? You know, as the declaration's being read aloud, you know, Graham Greene tells us there is no occasion that he couldn't, mark where he doesn't think about this escape in the meadows.
I love that series.
Yeah, it was. Look, for the lack of F&I documentaries, that was a strong offering and a lack of offerings.
And I also love the abbreviation for the French and Indian War.
F&I.
F&I. That F&I. I bet that's what Washington thought about it too. Now I'm involved in that F&I.
Well, I started it. I'm involved in it. You mean I started it?
Woo!
So, all right. So I just wanted to know that just because it's one of those, when you come to these stories. So for you grew up in it, right? You kind of came to the 18th century, adopted in the Civil War, did the two kind of simultaneously. Yeah. For me, I always loved the 18th century, but I came to it in earnest honestly, as an adult. Right. So for me, it was like, this is something I learned several years ago, not too distantly in my past, and just wondered, as you were telling this, is this the same group of Rhode Island soldiers that Washington basically is like, thank God when they arrive? It's got to be. We're on the same moment in time.
Yep.
So cool.
Wow.
Yeah, and while we're talking about sort of people, I want to focus on Washington's household a little bit, and this will I'll call back to where general officers are living. So Washington is going to, at first, live in the Marquis tent. There were a lot of old myths that he stayed there till every hut was built, or he was there for a couple of months, which is not what happened. I think he's in that tent for no more than 3 or 4 days. I think he's there until they can find a house for him to use.
Right.
And like the whole pumped up thing about, it's a recognition of solidarity with the men that he's going to stay in a tent. Like, do you have time to parade thousands of guys around the general who's living in the tent? And by that, like, that would also look a little self-serving. Like, none of that happened.
Yeah.
You can't operate the army from that marquee. There's way too much going on. He's got too many pressures that are coming in on him, and he's got there's number 6. He's got his military staff and family with him.
If you get 12, you get a free sub, I understand.
There is a prize.
They're called hoagies where I come
We have to start a
Here we
Patreon
go.
just to fund the sandwiches we have to give to guests.
I know.
So he's going to move into the Potts house. So we talked about those industrial operations that are on the Valley Creek. It's why it's named the Valley Forge. And, of course, it's being run through a series of dams and mill races that are hitting the water wheels, powering machinery there. So the Potts house that Washington will encounter and eventually rent, the records are spotty. It's definitely built by 1773, potentially as early as the late 1750s. Okay. And if you go there and you look at it today, it's a little awkward in terms of Georgian architecture, because when you encounter a Georgian home, you would usually see a central hallway, and then however many rooms on one side of the hall,
Sure,
but a mirrored image on the other side. So if you've got 2 rooms on one side, you're expecting 2 on the other. At the Potts house, you don't have that mirrored image on the other side, because this was built by Isaac Potts originally as a home for somebody who was managing his industrial operations. This was his guy on the scene. That's what it's built for. By the time Washington moves in and rents it, it's being utilized potentially by a woman named Deborah Hughes, who is an in-law to the Potts family. I say potentially. We know Deborah Hughes is the one that signs the receipt. Washington will pay 100 pounds sterling in Pennsylvania currency, in Pennsylvania specie, to rent that home, and he's going to be there for just about 6 months. The encampment is 6 months long, December 19th to June 19th. Almost the whole time Washington is in that house. It's really hard to do an economic changeover. There you go. That's the front room in the house. Yeah. It's probably about $8 to $10 grand that he's going to pay out of his own pocket for this.
What?
To stay there for 6 months.
I mean, the man's running a plantation. I mean, he's got the money.
He's got the dough.
But I mean, is
He's
this
got the money.
in that in 1777 money?
If you were to convert it to today's money based on purchasing power, it's probably $8,000 to $10,000 equivalency.
I
right?
got you.
What he's going to pay.
Okay.
So
That's about right.
But we don't know if Deborah Hughes is living there. I hear a lot of people speculate, but it's not documented well. The house may very well be vacant because the British in the fall of 1777 in September raided that entire valley. And they were trying to destroy the grist mills. They were trying to destroy everything they could that was of value and to get American supplies that were located in the area of Valley Forge. In fact, in September of 77, 3 months before Washington gets there and starts to use the house, John Graves Simcoe from the 40th of Foot uses that as a temporary headquarters.
Can we talk about him for a minute?
Fire away.
Did you watch Turn?
I couldn't get through it.
Really?
Yeah.
Even just for the fact that it was like something of this century that was on TV?
Yeah, here's what I had a hard time with. The material culture was so bad.
Yeah.
And the chronologies were messed with so much that it and I wasn't being a snob about it. Okay. It was just like, I understand the value of what Hollywood or television productions can do. And there are limitations based on budgets, based on lots of stuff. And the reason that and I told Calorie, I think Turn is shit. Because he asked me the same question one day when I talked to him. I just don't like it for that reason. It created too many problems that had to be fixed. Whereas the film Gettysburg, you could look at it and say, oh, this, that, and the other thing. You can get really picky. But the thing about Gettysburg is there was a real solid attempt there.
The basic narrative doesn't stray far.
Even though they based it on Shar's book, and you could never create a film that would tell the entire story of that battle because you'd be watching it for days on end.
Sure.
Right? It
That'd
got
be great,
people
though.
in, and it gave them a good baseline. Gods and Giants was terrible.
Don't do it. Don't do it. But you're right. Don't do it.
It's terrible. that was a documentary for reenactors and Confederate reenactors.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Gods
I slipped into a Gods and Generals rabbit hole, and I forgot what we were legitimately talking about.
Gods and Generals.
It was Turn. And
that's right, because
so it was just like, and if it brings people in, I think that's great. It's just that one created a lot of issues for me, and the 18th century material culture stuff, I'm really like immersed in that. So when I see things like leather doublet style waistcoats and all these freaking beards that shouldn't be there, it just it gives me
so real quick before the two things I was going to bring up on the beard.
Yeah,
I did appreciate some small thing they did. They addressed it with Caleb Brewster, not the other random background people,
right?
But with Caleb, they addressed it in the plot of the show, and they addressed it in the most passing, hilarious way that I guarantee you some history nerd that was a part of that production made this happen. But at one point in time, Anna Strong is with Ben Talmadge, and she's basically saying oh, you've seen Caleb. It's been a long time. She's like, how is he? And he goes, oh, crazy as usual, wearing a beard. It's this insane thing. But they mention it. And I was like, oh, but no. See, here's what I hate. They kill Nathaniel Sackett. Mm-hmm. He doesn't die. Right. It's why would you do that? And then John Graves Simcoe, they turn, and the reason I brought that moment to bring this up is they turned him into this psychopathic murderer.
They turned him.
But the dude was a really progressive, semi-cool guy, only ends slavery. And what's the Canadian province he becomes governor of?
Is it Ontario?
Yeah, but he ends slavery there almost immediately upon assuming power. So dude's not the serial killer that they turned him into in the show.
Yeah, it was, Robert Rogers was a peyote-induced maniac in that show.
Dude, Angus McFadden, though, what a vibe is Roger Rogers. Are you drunk? I don't know. That's the character. I don't know. So, all right, so John Graves Simcoe's running around in this story.
So, anyway, Washington's going to move into this, and I think he's there by December 22nd or 23rd. Part of my thought line process for that is when Washington is writing to Congress and to Henry Lawrence specifically, super long letter in that time period, and it's the starve, dissolve, disperse letter. When Washington says if grade and capital changes are not put into place, then the Army will reduce to one of three circumstances: starve, dissolve, disperse. I don't think he's writing the letter that long in that tent, and I think he's got to be out of.
Yeah, I mean.
He wants.
You wouldn't be able to read it.
Robert Hanson Harrison, whose handwriting the copy is in. I mean, the ink is going to be freezing,
frozen. Yeah,
right. With Washington in that house are some interesting folks though. So this is going to be basically a mini Pentagon if we looked at it in today's standards.
All right.
Everything that he's got to do: drill, hygiene, discipline, supply, visiting congressmen from York, Indian chiefs that are coming to see Washington, commanders from other areas down the Wilmington or up the other defensive cordon who are coming to see him. Plus, Washington's got a staff that he's working with there. Martha gets there by February, and if you add in the household slaves and servants, there are probably 20 to 25 people living and working in this house. 18 to 20 hours a day. Domestic staff also included Margaret Thomas, a free black woman who was hired as a laundress. She would later marry Billy Lee in Philadelphia.
Okay, during this time.
Oh, wow.
They're working together. They get married later.
Okay. But is this when they met?
I don't know that this is when they first met or not, but I know they're spending a significant amount of time here.
All right, well, this is courting time.
All right, also...
Wow, that's so cool.
There are rented enslaved individuals who are a married couple, Hannah and Isaac Till, who are working for Washington there, and they are cooks. Okay. And they're working in the kitchen probably 18 to 20 hours a day because we're feeding 20 to 25 people on a regular basis.
Sure. Right.
One of the interesting things we found out about the Tills a few years ago was that they were earning wages and working to buy their own freedom.
Fantastic.
And they had a baby in that house. During the course of the encampment, Isaac Worley Till was born. So in January, February of 1778, the Tills welcome a child. You've got Frank the Hostler, who's there, all of Washington aides, Martha Washington. So you imagine this is a melting pot of individuals who are working in this space. And this one is just for you. Washington's chief steward is a civilian named Patrick McGuire.
Hell yeah. Running the show, I bet.
And he got fired.
Oh, of course, because he was probably drunk on the job.
I understand he went to... See, I've been... Look,
he probably showed up and he was he really drunk?
This is actually perfect.
Wait.
Because I've been saying this for years. Pat McGuire is a vampire.
Right.
He He's been on ships like with Amerigo Vespucci.
That's true. The first, so the deckhand that pulls Vespucci's lander onto shore is Patrick McGuire. He's the sailor.
Yeah.
So technically,
And there's a Patrick
McGuire's the first feet.
There's a Patrick McGuire buried in Mount Olivet Cemetery in Frederick.
Killed at Monocacy.
And now you have this Patrick McGuire who is at Valley Forge.
Well, he's been around.
He is. My theory is pretty solid. He's been killing people, burying their bodies,
right,
and just disguising them as him. And
so
then just are
we safe in this basement?
Yeah, you're
for
safe.
now.
Okay.
He doesn't need to change forms
Don't
yet.
bring up the movie that shall not be mentioned.
That's
again.
right.
Yes.
Don't bring it up.
Yeah,
I'll snap.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this Patrick McGuire is dismissed for alleged theft and drunkenness.
Okay, so part of that is cliche, and I resemble that fact. The other part, theft, though, that's kind of gnarly.
Yeah,
Does it say what he was stealing?
Money. Because as the chief household steward, one of the jobs that he has is to purchase provisions for the household.
Oh, so it's just in front of him.
Yeah, and it's just,
that's terrible.
Time to hit the skids. So
maybe he's sending that money though back to the home country there, and he's getting ready to. He's saying, "Hey, start gathering your pikes because we'll need them in about 20 years."
So this reminds me of something you always say out at your site.
What's
about
that?
like the British prisoner of wars and like the prisoners of war. Ugh. British prisoners of war. There we go. But like you're always saying that like you don't have like all the records and you don't have everything like that, but you know that there's in these terrible conditions there's love blooming. There are there's still people are still people. Life
finds a way.
Right. And that there's.
I gotta wonder though, in that moment, is there any documentation, any commentary on that moment of that child's birth, like where like even for a moment people just go, oh,
nope, not a thing, and that's one of the saddest parts of this. This was kind of stumbled over in baptismal records.
Yeah.
It's cool that there's a record of it, though.
Yeah, but we were able to figure out that, no, definitely the child was born in January or February of 78 in that house. And the Tills are probably sleeping either on the kitchen floor or in a small garret space above that.
Right.
I mean, there's in the house proper, there are 2 first-floor rooms, 2 second-floor rooms. Mm-hmm. There's a basement, but at the time of the encampment, it's only about 3 feet deep. It's a root cellar. And there's the connected kitchen. So everything is multi-purpose space in there. It's always a beehive of activity. Washington has a temporary log cabin structure built off the back end at one point because they just need extra space to do stuff.
Right.
The only people that are going to have privacy are going to be the General and Mrs. Washington.
I was going to say George and Martha.
Yeah, and we do know what room they were staying in because Martha Washington writes in an account about the direction of sunlight coming into windows at certain times of day. So we could figure out that the back room on the second floor is where they were staying. Nice. And then when you say like life is life, people move on, like all this stuff's happening. It's a crazy encampment. The staff officers are probably pulling their hair out. We really don't know where a lot of other people slept, except for the fact that John Lawrence and Alexander Hamilton were definitely in the garret for at least one night, because Hamilton writes a notation that he awoke in the morning to the sound of John Lawrence
clapping,
screaming in agony because he'd hit his head.
Oh,
hit his head on the rafters.
One of the rafters.
And the only place where that could have happened
was in the garret.
You know, so we know that too.
That's funny.
So while we're gonna flip, we should clapping.
Just move on from the joke. Just move on from the joke. Because I was like, it's actually, what you were saying is actually funny too, so we'll just go with that one. That's real.
Now, John, say fucking.
And that's not a euphemism.
No.
Anyway, or an innuendo.
Never. Not one.
I was going to say the same joke about when you mentioned that George and Martha were the only ones with privacy. And
I really don't want to think about
that. And they clapped for the army every night. It was just a round of applause. Lasted 43 seconds. This is how you want to think about your founding fathers now, huh? Mm-hmm. That's right. So, all right. So, getting out of the beehive, though, right?
Right. Back to the people.
Because the camp is still also its own beehive.
The camp is its own beehive of activity, and really, what I want to talk about a little bit is like, what are the weather conditions? What are people facing? Because we talked a little bit about their demographic makeup. So, luckily, there's a guy named Phineas Pemberton from Bucks County, who was weather was his hobby.
All right.
And he took daily detailed notes on temperatures, barometric pressures, river conditions. So all of his journals are saved at the American Philosophical Society in Philadelphia. So we can see, we have a good idea, because Bucks County's not far away, what temperatures were like in Valley Forge. he's recording twice a day. The highest temperature he'll record from December 19th to January 1st is 37 degrees. In the whole month of January, there were only 4 days that had high temperatures reach the low 40s. There are at least 13 days of rain or snow in the first 6 weeks of the encampment, and he's got the Delaware clogged with ice until at least January 8th. So when I'm there and I ask people to think about what does it look like, what does it feel like for these guys, and you're there at the Muhlenberg Brigade huts, I said you almost have to screw up your eyes really tight, and if you want to think about the winter, which is not particularly snowy, but it is very rainy, you have to imagine that all around you there are thousands of young men, 18 to 25 years old for the most part, darn near naked, because most of them are. I mean, we've got accounts of guys who are wrapping themselves up in blankets like diaper togas just to cover their nakedness. Accounts of, like, in one company, 5 guys have shoes. It's just a lack of basic things. So you have to imagine that they're there, that it's gray, it's brown, it's depressing, it's cold outside, it's hovering around the freezing mark during the day. If it's not snowing, it's a driving rain, or it's that penetrating mist that just never goes away, and that it just is the thing, that cold that soaks into your bones. And you could walk into a room on a day like that and warm yourself up. These guys can't. Right. And it's crippling them. And then you have to layer on top of that you are so hungry because the only thing you're getting reliably is going to be a ration of flour, that you've got that hunger pain that is like fire and something biting your intestines. Yeah. And you're trying to struggle, and you're trying to move, and you're trying to work through that, and layer in the stench of well over 15,000 people who aren't bathing regularly and all that body odor. And then the stench of human waste, because this undisciplined army is not always going 200 to 300 yards to the rear to utilize the latrines, right? If it's a cold night, cloudy night, snowy night, moonless night, otherwise night at Valley Forge in the winter, are you going to walk 200 yards and potentially fall into that slit trench and get covered in filth? Or are you going to go behind the hut and relieve yourself, which is what they're doing, right? So you layer in that stench of human waste and rivulets of urine running around through your bare feet in the streets there, and you got fire from probably 4,000 campfires, and all that smoke is hanging low and sucking it all on top of you like a pall. And that's your daily physical winter existence while you're trying to build trenches, while you might be trying to build a bridge, while you're doing all these other things to sustain life. That's the physical encounter. And then I tell them, you have to layer in the psychological encounter here too, because
how you navigate that.
How do you do it, right? Because we can sit here today, or I could give a tour, and I can say to people, hey, the Army leaves on June 19th. These guys don't know when the hell they're getting out. Right?
They don't know they're leaving on June 19th.
They don't know
right,
it.
They don't know that. We know that.
I can tell you, supply situation improves drastically in March when Nathaniel Green is a competent person who takes over the quartermaster's department. They have no idea that Nathaniel Green's going to do it and it's going to get better. So they can't see the light at the end of the tunnel for the physical struggle. And that's part of it. But the other psychological thing I ask people to think about is you've built an encampment, you're working on your trenches, they're getting strong, which is great. But you can't just stay there and let the British walk up. You have to secure the place. Yeah. Right? So you've got pickets and sentries working 24 hours a day on the outskirts of the encampment. As you know, you've got a comrade in arms who might be 10 yards on either side of you, and you're a warning device. Even on a bad weather day, at least you could see the people on either side of you and see out in front of you to a certain distance. I said, but night's a different story. You may not be able to see anything at all. You only hear things. And then your mind will begin to really mess with you a lot. Is that an animal? Is that the breeze? Is that something moving? Is it not something moving? And, your job is to sound the alarm if there's an attack.
A lot of false alarms.
Right, yeah, false alarm. But if you false alarm and then thousands of guys spell out in the trenches and, you were wrong.
Right.
People are going to be pretty pissed off at you.
But I imagine that happens.
It does to an extent. And but for those guys who are out there, particularly at night, please remember that they're combat veterans at this point. That when they're out there looking, waiting, watching, they don't know that the British are never coming to get them there. But undoubtedly, they're thinking back to things like a Brandywine or a Kucha's Bridge. And in their minds are replaying things like the shrieking of shells overhead, the sound of lead thudding into bodies next to them, crushing bone, the acrid smell of sulfur in the air.
What's the, we've got guys that were part of the Saratoga campaign in this camp now.
Yeah.
Stony Point hasn't happened yet, right?
No, it's in 79.
Has the other battle happened? what's the rally cry of Stony Point? It's like remember.
Remember Paoli.
Has that happened?
Paoli
yet?
has happened.
So
and for the Pennsylvanians, yeah.
So are we thinking about people coming out of the dark?
Yeah.
So
right. Absolutely. Right. And then, everything that comes with that, the smell of burning flesh, the smell of burning hair, the smell of guys who are reacting to fear and combat by defecating themselves and they can't control it.
Sure.
And when you tell people to think about that, they get real quiet real fast.
Yeah.
Because it's the reality of the psychological experience. And I said, if you can't just think about that for a minute, you can never understand how difficult this is. And words don't even do it justice. And I would hope that nobody ever has to be in the position where they physically experience it, but you have to try to bring the experience home for them, right? So I asked them to think about those factors, and I also asked them to think about the fact that there were about 400 women and children there.
Yes,
yes. Yeah.
Right. And for the women and children who were there, by and large, the people we know about, it's a Martha Washington, it's a Kitty Green, the wives of general officers who visit every winter.
People of position and privilege.
Yes, that's what we remember. What's not written down for the most part are the names of the camp followers or the women and children on the strength of the army, it's accepted in 18th century European military traditions that women and children, to an extent, can follow. They have to be attached to a male who's serving, but they also have jobs, and Valley Forge, they're going to serve as laundresses, nurses, seamstresses, cooks, in many instances, general laborers. And they do not have private accommodations, right? If it's a hut built for 12 guys, let's just say there is, Joe Jones and Martha Jones and little Sammy Jones. There's three. Well, they are three people that get factored into that 12.
Okay.
The other 9 people are part of that squad. They don't get private accommodations for families.
Gotcha.
So now your family life is playing out in front of all these people. And in many instances, the rations, as terrible as they are, the women and the children are usually getting half or quarter rations. So you've got a guy who it's a family member and a related child, and you're watching these people suffer from hunger and borderline starvation and definitely malnutrition worse than you are, and you have no power to alleviate their suffering. And you undoubtedly feel responsible. And I've asked, every father all the fathers out there in the tours, just think about that for a minute. Your significant other or your children are here, and this is what you're watching. And how do you react as a parent when you can't do anything about it? And Washington doesn't even want the women and children there.
Well, can you blame him?
Strain on Army's resources.
You mentioned laundresses and seamstresses. Mm-hmm. My question, of course, at that point is, what are they sewing together? It doesn't sound like there's not there.
Yeah,
much
so
to do.
it's repair work.
Yeah,
when soap can be gotten, it's washing, that sort of thing.
Gotcha.
But as cloth issues become available, they're able to assist with seaming garments, that sort of thing. And as the supply situation improves, regimental tailors and individuals with sewing experience are put to work.
But I'll tell you, just the laundry alone, right? So laundry alone is everything. Just changing a shirt every couple of days, because I got to imagine the Army at this point, we've probably started to move into a lot of gaitered trousers, a lot of the hunting frocks.
Well,
so there's a lot of stuff that's uniformed but just washing it is everything.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's not funny, haha. It's funny, interesting when the way you delivered that 400 number, that there are women and children, kind of to differentiate, because we do this at work, because in your mind, especially when you study military history a lot, you get very focused on the fighting men, whether it's the officer class or the enlisted class, but we're always talking about the fighting men. And at a certain point, a desensitization happens, and I don't know if it's the way we protect ourselves from our own humanity is whatever, but we're really used to the concept of men, boys fighting and dying, suffering, enduring the privations and the hardships of war and things like that. But then when you remind people that it encompasses and is encountered and engaged by far more than just the fighting man. So at Fort Frederick, we have a prison that sees 5,000 to 6,000 POWs over a 3-year period of time. I say, but tucked into that number is a combined 550 women and children. Like there's a hidden statistic in there that brings out the humanity of this moment. And like the way you delivered that, that hit me the way I hope when I do it at work, it hits people the same way. So, but man, so first of all, compliment to you. That hit me real hard. But it's such an important thing to realize is like, it's not ever just the men standing in the line shooting at each other and loading the cannons. It's everything. There's your wagoners, your logistics, your laundries, this and that. So I'm grateful that you mentioned them. Do we know beginning, end, how many, like, because I know that part of Valley Forge's narrative is it's, survival.
Yeah.
Do we know what so sub question in this. So do we know how they do as far as surviving, overall, roughly their numbers? And secondly, interesting change of maybe it's colony to colony, but in the Maryland colony in the 1750s, the laundress is considered a part of the military role. Yeah. They're on staff, right? But these women are not. They are traditionally or officially on staff, right? They
are not officially on staff. They're paid.
Sure.
Right? But they're paid like per piece service. They'll draw rations. They will appear on rolls of companies as a number, but not necessarily staff. Washington, it's just one of those things where you kind of tell it like it is. Like Washington's thing with the women and children is twofold. One, it's a strain on supplies. He's very, very clear about that all the time. The second one is he's afraid that it's going to result in vice, prostitution, and venereal disease running rampant in the army.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really even want the women and children seen. And for example, prior to the Battle of Brandywine, the Continental Army marches through the city of Philadelphia, and they pass by the Pennsylvania State House, and they are there to show the Continental Congress what a big force this is. Washington very carefully writes out the orders for that line of march, and basically there is a notation that's made when X division passes, somebody needs to get Congress back into the State House and then go grab the women and children from around the corner and just move them through the city as quickly as you can. Like he doesn't even want them seen.
Wow.
And there's something there to me that it's visceral.
Yeah, that's deep.
That there's something there. And I talk about that a lot because I never move into any topic or any location or any historic personality with the intent of being their apologist or being a guy that knocks them off the pedestal.
Sure.
Right.
100%.
I kind of approach it with like, yeah, here's some really good things that you probably knew about and you want to talk about. Here's some other things that you may not find as flattering, but
you got to be objective.
You have to talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That sort of
thing.
It
still happened.
So in terms of the numbers of women and children, death rates and survival there, no, I don't have anything on that.
Well, like you said
I've never
before,
seen anything.
You probably don't. We don't even really know their names for most of them.
For most of them, they've just been lost to history.
That's
the only
what
ones.
A tragedy.
The only ones that might circulate from time to time is if you see a woman who's being brought before a court martial, because they are subject to military law.
And then they're drummed out.
I have a follow-up question to Pat's, and it's kind of the inverse of that.
Yeah.
Do we know how many children were made orphans? Like, do we know that like both the father and the mother died and they were there, and then what do they do?
No.
Okay.
I don't have anything on that either. I can tell you in terms of I'll address some. I want to keep us on track with time too. And
So I got one more derail for you, if that's all right, and then I
can talk about medical and then politics.
Well, because the reason, so like what we're talking about right now is sort of these themes of these unexplored, untold, unquantified sort of experiences, right, and just sort of. It takes these types of conversations to sort of drop the interest little seed, get it planted, have you, the listener, then go and explore it for yourself, blah, blah, blah. I'll tell you, there's a lot of people probably listening to this conversation right now that's happening for like, I've never thought about this, never thought about that. And that's great. And I'm happy to be a part of that for you. Here's a moment where that happened for me recently. Doom scrolling last week, 2 weeks ago, and end up on this thing that starts talking about all the children that were born in Vietnam and left behind.
Yeah.
All the children that were born by American soldiers over there. And it was, the video, I got to tell you, was two things. One, I'd never thought about that concept in my entire life. Never thought of that. And two, the video had some of the craziest, imagine this, A fully African-American looking kid speaking with a very cliche Vietnamese accent, fully fluent in like his culture is Vietnamese. He's Vietnamese.
Right.
Or half looking, white kid looks half Vietnamese, whatever. Just the craziest, but your mind never thinks about these subjects. So like they're everywhere in every single thing we talk about, whether it's war, sports, big ocean liners, doesn't matter. There's some theme in there that you never think about.
And, I guess a way to look at it is it's also human detritus of military conflict.
Right.
And it's really unfortunate that that's what it becomes. But when it's forgotten and it's discarded. Like, and it's a piece of humanity that's forgotten and discarded, or its contributions are forgotten and discarded.
So we talk about it with the enslaved people whose names we'll never know. We talk about it in Parker's question just now. How many kids were left behind by the Army because dad died as a casualty or a sickness or mom, whatever? Like, we'll never know. Yeah. But yet these are real lives.
Yep. One of the most moving moments.
And I just had to bring that up because I was like, this is exactly this. This rocked me a couple weeks ago in a completely different era, but it was like the same concept of just like the untold, the unexplored narrative.
One of the most moving moments I ever had as far as like researching history, anything would happen completely unintentionally. I was in Georgia, tracking down my great-grandfather's cemetery that he's buried in. A bunch of my relatives are buried there. And we walk into the slave section, and there's these little stones, and the only word on the very top, and I don't mean the top of the face this way, I mean the top going around the top, was just one word, S-L-A-V-E.
Yeah.
And I was with my cousin, and I was just,
there's like a whole life.
I'm shaking.
There's a whole life.
There's hundreds.
So going from
thousands of lives, we'll just their names are lost,
and their identity has become
that word.
That word, and to me, like I
well, that's
I'm shook thinking about it right now.
So that's what made former host of this show, Matt Borders' program at Monocacy Battlefield, where they found the names of over 500. Like they found the names. Wow. That's what made that project so special. It's like those people go from statistics to people again.
Yeah.
And that's incredible.
That was
to switch gears to go from people who have names and lives and souls and deserve to have them told to soulless people that we shouldn't talk about but need to, politicians. Recently at work, a volunteer of ours was being hypercritical of Washington in this sort of 77, 78, and there's really, they really don't do a lot. He really just kind of sits around, and not a lot happens, and we were kind of like your face just got. We were just...
They said that?
Yes. There was a lot of, I can't believe this bonkers we're hearing. Because also, the entire time you've been alluding to this winter camp ending in June, I'm like, they basically roll into Monmouth.
Yeah.
Like, exactly. So it's not like they don't do... It's not like they don't do anything. But anyway, I digress. So the political aspect of this is, I think, where that comes from. Because I think at a certain point... the Continental Congress thinks Washington's not doing stuff. Is that so? What sort of is, you mentioned the political, like what is the political conversation? Because while Washington is having to navigate a million things, the condition of the Army, the supplying of the Army, the in and out of his beehives. So let's be real. There's a combination of military life, social life, personal life, all these things happening.
All of it.
There's then all of the Continental Congress sitting in. We're back in Philly. Are we still in New York at this point?
They're in York, yeah.
Right, because the British are in Philly.
British are in Philly. Congress is in New York. So
I lost track.
One of the things I've said to folks a lot over the years is the other thing to remember about the House, and like I try to talk about, like, when we do a historical question, it's like, why, so what, who cares? Those are important questions to ask all the time.
Absolutely.
Find the meaning. So why is this House important? What are some of the things that transpired here? Well, social elements, we talked about people like the Tills. We talked about, all these other folks. But in that House, Washington is fighting what I think is the political battle of his military career.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because as Washington is losing another campaign, he lost New York in 76. He loses Philadelphia in 77. Our boy Horatio Gates is up there in Saratoga winning and taking all the credit and not letting Benedict Arnold, he's hashtag winning.
Hashtag winning.
He's the hero of Saratoga.
And, Gates gets, he always had a pretty high opinion of himself from my perspective, but, Gates does not stay with his army. He goes out to York and he starts courting Congress. And what Gates is trying to do is get Washington's job.
Yeah.
Right? And
show him the shirt, Parker.
Horatio Gates.
Horatio
Trying to
Gates.
just said you're fired, George.
Fire
He said,
George.
do it now.
Show it to camera. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah, said just
There we
do
go.
it now. So
Fire George.
So this is what he's doing. He's out there in New York saying this. He's
It's a-
handing that note off.
And it's a
Yes.
little bit of a letter writing campaign,
It is.
correct?
And he gets himself made president of the Board of War.
Of course he
which
does.
is a new body that Congress has instituted. And the Board of War becomes a go-between between Washington and the President of Congress. And the President of Congress had always really been a direct report for Washington.
And who's
So
the president of Congress?
It's going to be Henry Lawrence.
Lawrence. Okay.
Right? It's Henry Lawrence.
Okay.
And Lawrence's son is serving on Washington's staff.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Right. That's right. That's right. Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So the political intrigue really goes back to a month and a half before the Army even gets to Valley Forge.
Okay.
One of the guys that Horatio Gates is very close with is a guy named General Thomas Conway, who had served in the French Army for many years, even though he's a born Irishman from Curry. And, you know, if you're in the 18th century, you want to kill the English, well, you'll fight with the Irish.
Yep.
There are regiments of native Irish serving.
Or the 19th
Right.
or the 20th.
Yep.
I'm just
So,
saying.
you know, either way.
We'll just, doesn't matter. We'll
right.
fight you.
So Conway, Conway is going to be a fairly recent arrival to the United States. He gets here in May of '77, is appointed a brigadier general, and gets a brigade. Serves with Washington in the Philadelphia campaign. Conway is one of those class of French officers and generals who sees himself as above any provincial, right, above any American, and he thinks he's better than Washington. And there is this back and forth correspondence between Conway and Gates. And Conway writes to Gates in early November to say, "Heaven has been determined to save your country, where a weak general and bad counselors would have ruined it." And the weak general he's referring to is
Washington, of
right?
course. Yeah.
All right. So Washington is provided with an extract of this letter.
Yes.
And this is all happening in early November while supplies are crumbling at White Marsh. And Washington, at that point in time, it's a pretty baller move. He writes a letter to Thomas Conway and says, "Sir, a letter which I received last night contained the following paragraph." And then he quotes that whole thing.
Hey, he's basically like, my bad. I shouldn't have got. I don't think this was meant for
Yeah,
me,
well,
right?
I don't think this is supposed to be for
it's
me.
it's like imagine today at work, like somebody's like talking you on
Yeah.
an email, it automatically gets sent to you. It's like, "Hey man, I didn't think you meant for me to get this."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So knowing
somebody basically just replied all
Yeah.
to Washington right now.
Yeah. So it's like it's out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That this is happening. Washington's aides are like, "You got to do something about it." And Washington's basic tack is, "I have bigger problems. I got other stuff to worry about."
Like
He's like,
alive.
he just put his foot in his
Right.
mouth big time.
You
We're
know.
going to let him chew on that for a minute.
So there's clear tension, and we're moving towards the Valley Forge encampment. One of the things Washington had wanted was a reform of the Army. And when he said reform the Army, he wanted it to be trained under one common methodology, which wasn't happening. Right?
Yeah.
There were lots of manuals that were out there, but there was no common method of drill. Washington had plans in place for that. He had some people, including the Baron de Arendt, that he was hoping might be appointed Inspector General by Congress. So Congress, because of Gates' influence, what do they do on December 13th? They appoint Thomas Conway the Inspector General of the Army. And they promote him to Major General over the heads of 6 or 7 brigadier generals who were senior in seniority to him. This sets off Washington. It sets off the brigadiers.
Yeah.
The brigadiers write a remonstrance to Congress. Conway comes to camp at Valley Forge, and he presents himself to Washington to say, "I'm your new Inspector General." The reception he gets from general officers is extremely cold. He gets a cold reception from Washington as well. Washington says, "Where are your instructions from Congress?" "I don't have them." "Can't serve without your
And
instructions."
he's like, well, then go sit over there until you have him.
And yeah, basically come back. So what Conway does, like a whiny, petulant bitch that he is, he goes, right? He goes back. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
goes back to York and basically says, "You know, they were mean.
He said, no.
No, they were mean
You
to me.
mean to me.
Yeah.
The generals don't like me." And he bitches and moans. And Washington is like, well, you know, asked to explain this. So Washington writes this stellar letter to Henry
I
Lawrence
can't wait. I cannot wait.
on January 2nd.
Okay.
And he says, "If General Conway means by cool receptions mentioned in the last paragraph of his letter of the 31st ultimo, that I did not receive him in the language of a warm and cordial friend, I readily confess the charge."
You're gonna leave me hanging because that's amazing.
Just go for it.
He goes on. He says, "I did not, nor shall I ever, till I am capable of the arts of dissimulation. These I despise, and my feelings will not permit me to make professions of friendship to the man I deem my enemy and whose system of conduct forbids it."
Yes.
Dude. Tell me how you feel, George.
It's just like,
I want to attend his school of corporate email writing.
I just he's like, I'm not hiding it. I definitely was rude to that guy.
yeah, he owns it, right? So
That's amazing.
Conway does what he's done before, and he goes back to Congress, and he threatens to resign, and this is sort of hung up for a while. But in March 1778, Congress accepts his resignation, and he is forced to leave the Continental Army.
All right.
So his story sort of goes on a little bit, though. Shortly after that, Conway is in the area of Philadelphia, and he's continuing to just badmouth Washington. And John Cadwalader, who is a colonel of Philadelphia Associated Regiment, Washington supporter, is like, "Shut your mouth." and like the 18th century equivalency of "Shut your fucking mouth."
Yeah.
Shut it, bro.
Shut it. And Conway keeps, and he's like, "Look, dude, you keep talking shit,
And you're going to get it.
I'm going to challenge you to a duel." Conway keeps talking trash.
He challenged him to a duel.
Do it.
July 4th, 1778, in Philadelphia, at a distance of 12 paces, Conway fires first and misses.
Oh, you're dead to rights.
Cadwalader shoots him right in the mouth.
Oh, my God.
Does he live?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
The ball passes through the back of his head,
Yeah.
and Cadwalader...
Well, his head was empty, so that's pretty good.
Exactly. Cadwalader allegedly goes over to where Conway is laying on the ground with his tongue like lolling out of his mouth and a pool full of blood, and says, "I have stopped the damn rascals lying."
That's insane. I love that.
That's
Yep.
Also, I
Yeah.
feel like he lit a cigarette and then walked away from an explosion.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a part of that
Yippee-ki-yay,
story.
motherfucker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's also, what a shot with a pistol.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that you got it in such a...
And you know he was aiming for his mouth.
Oh, yeah.
He had to be.
Had to be.
But then do you think that he spent the night before thinking like, what,
Thinking
what
of that
cool
line.
thing am I going to say when I shoot him in
Right.
the mouth?
Right. I'm going to shoot him in his mouth. And then I'm going to come up with the
I thought you were going to say something weird like he walked up to him and put his finger in the hole.
Oh, it's going to be like that scene in Reservoir Dogs where he's got the ear.
Yeah, just being weird with it.
You know?
Dude, I just learned that whole scene when he's dancing around doing that is an improvised scene.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know that. I was like, that is one of the best scenes of the 90s
is.
film era, and it's entirely improvised.
It's a great film.
if you haven't seen
okay,
it, you gotta see
so-
it.
So Conway
anyway.
Conway recovers to an extent. He bears a massive scar. Interestingly, and then I'll move on to von Steuben.
Yes.
So Conway has served in the French army, right? He comes here, serves in the American army, gets the boot. During the French Revolution, he's one of those guys who they're coming for. And it's almost like a Scarlet Pimpernel scenario. The British government gets him evacuated. And in the 1790s, he serves in the British army.
What the hell? Bro, who do you back? You're American, you're French, you're British?
Yep. They put him in charge of he was a colonel of a regiment of Catholic troops. They had formed an Irish Catholic brigade in 1794.
Okay.
And so he gets one of those. So anyway, that was pretty interesting about him.
What a ride.
Amazing.
Yeah. Politics also, just before I get to von Steuben, Washington. So now, after this is happening, Congress is starting to take a deeper look at Washington, who had been asking for reforms. He's been asking Congress to really evaluate the situation instead of just criticizing. So by January 10th, Washington gets a letter.
Great day.
From, which January 10th?
This is birthday.
It's your birthday?
It's Parker's birthday.
All right. Elbridge Gerry wrote to Washington.
The gerrymanderer in chief himself.
Far into the future, Parker Russell will come along.
Yes.
Right?
That is the real.
That's what he wrote to
historical thing.
Washington.
This dude will be the ambassador of a wild place we call Maine.
That's
Local
it.
Maine,
I am
man.
the ambassador of Maine.
That's right.
Gerry wrote to Washington that a committee has been appointed from Congress, and they will work in concert with your excellency. You have full powers to form and execute plans for reducing the number of battalions in the service, recommending necessary appointments of general officers, determine the necessary reinforcements for the cavalry, artillery, and infantry, and to report opinions on the mode of obtaining the same. To remove from office any of the civil departments, individuals because of their incompetency, fraud, or appoint others until the sense of Congress can be known, to report all just causes of complaint relative to rank, and to confine that as near as may be to seniority in the military lines. So what Gary is saying is, dude, you've been heard. Enough of this. We hear all your complaints. We understand your problems. We're going to send this committee to you. You're going to work with them, and you're going to have broad-reaching powers to fix all of this.
Yeah.
That's great.
So
That's
the committee is going to be comprised of Francis Dana from Massachusetts, Joseph Reed from Pennsylvania, Nathaniel Folsom from New Hampshire, and John Harvey from Virginia. So Congress clearly is trying to get a geographic spread because they typically fracture along geographic lines when they disagree. Interestingly, initially, Congress also wanted to include 3 members of the Board of War: Horatio Gates,
Of course.
Thomas Mifflin, and Timothy Pickering. They are, and there's no additional documentation beyond, they are excused from service for personal reasons. And they were replaced with Gouverneur Morris, who's still walking on 2 legs at that point, right? And Charles Carroll. So you got a Pennsylvanian and a Marylander in there. It's now an all-civilian contingent. And this was pretty smart and sly, I think, on Washington's end. When the committee comes in January, and they're going to stay for most of the rest of the encampment, he establishes their quarters at a place called Moore Hall. Those are the quarters of Colonel Clement Biddle, who was the Commissary General of Forage.
Biddle.
And it's basically like,
Okay.
got it,
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
8.
8.
You're almost at sandwich, man.
Yeah, I know. The work of the committee is largely successful over the course of several months and likely long overdue in many ways, but it leads to a lot of far-reaching reforms. Now, what goes hand in hand with that is the appearance of von Steuben. Right? Because we've got all these general reforms at a 30,000-foot level, but what does Washington want to do through most of this encampment? A goal for him has been since the fall, I got to professionalize these guys.
Yeah, let's get the military on the same page.
Get the military on the same page. I got them for more than 1 year right now. Let's get them under a common manual. You know, Conway was always going to be a disaster as Inspector General, and then von Steuben is going to enter the picture. Von Steuben is, he was born in 1730, so he's going to be in his late 40s by the time of the encampment. He had been an officer in the Prussian army. He had served during the 7 Years' War. He was a staff officer for Frederick the Great. He was wounded at Treptow on the Russian front. He'd been a prisoner of war for a while. He saw hard service. He'd also attended the Prussian General Staff School. So he knows his stuff.
Right.
He rises no higher than the rank of captain during the course of his military service with the Prussians.
That's important because of how he introduces himself.
Yes, it is. So by 1763, he's out of a job. Militaries are being downsized. In recognition for his service, he's given administrative jobs. He ends up working for the Duchess of Württemberg for a while. He hates it. He's trying to break into militaries for a while.
She's a bitch.
And
I have no idea.
Everybody knew that about her.
Of course. Common knowledge.
That's common
Duchess,
knowledge.
you bitch.
Yeah.
So when the American Revolution rolls around, he's seeing European officers who are being promoted. Like Conway's an example. You know, go over, you're getting a promotion.
This is opportunity.
Right? This is the opportunity to go. By the time that von Steuben makes his way over to France to talk to Silas Deane and Benjamin Franklin and Richard Henry Lee, they have to inform him that he looks very valuable. If you'd like to go, you're going to have to volunteer. We can't guarantee you pay. We can't guarantee you rank because the American officers have become extremely upset that we're sending people from foreign lands who have not had experience in our country to command troops and to bump over them at a seniority level. Right. Like there's probably a degree of fairness, but also a degree of xenophobia in that argument all at the same time. Sure. And I think it's important to recognize that. Like there is a fairness complaint that has validity. Like we've been here for 2 years. Who's this dude? Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like what are you talking about?
Conveniently,
that's like companies that do outside hires. It's like promote within.
Right.
Like, what are you doing?
I was going to say, conveniently, his last name matches this manual of arms we have laying around.
So
that was pretty convenient.
It's the 64 manual with less words.
He's got to be. He's got to be the one.
He's got to be the one we choose.
So eventually he demurs, but then agrees, and he makes the journey over. He reaches Portsmouth, New Hampshire first. He's going to get there in December of 1777. Not a great fashion choice. He's wearing red, so there's a little bit of confusion about that, and they're almost arrested until things get straightened out. February, he's in York, Pennsylvania. So he spends a couple of months up in New England.
Getting figured out.
Leaf peeping.
But he's also writing. He's writing to Congress and writing to Washington during that time. In December of 77, from Portsmouth, Von Steuben writes to Washington and says, if the distinguished ranks in which I have served in Europe should be an obstacle, I had rather serve under your excellency as a volunteer than to be a subject of discontent to such deserving officers as have already distinguished themselves among you. He's clearly been well coached.
He's politicking hard.
He's politicking hard. He's been well coached. The Conway thing is fresh in everybody's mind. And the last thing that anybody wants is another one of these fancy European officers coming in and trying to act like they're God's gift to the military. Yep. So from early on, von Steuben's attitude towards Washington is one of complete deference and humility. Mm-hmm. He gets to Congress in York on February 5th of 1778, and that's where the letter of introduction is read, that people still debate to this day. You know, Franklin writes this, right? And he's translating French. At one point in time, von Steuben had served as a low-ranking officer as a lieutenant in the Quartermaster General's division for the Prussian Army. Franklin translates him as a lieutenant general. So, you know, Congress looks at this and it's like, Lieutenant General, Frederick the Great? All right.
Hell yeah.
I would take that. But, you know, was it intentional or was it a mistake? That's debated to this day. I don't know that we're ever going to know. If in my heart of hearts, if you were like, gun to your head, what do you think? I'd be like, I think Franklin's French was pretty good. Like, I don't know that this was just a slip up. Yeah. You know, he's kind of pumping up. He's pumping up the resume a little bit.
This is a guy, Franklin is a guy who's lived in France at this point for several years as our emissary, right? Yeah. He's serving in France, begging for help, right? Yes. That's where he is right now.
I mean, he's trying to, you know, broker the alliance.
And he's been there since what, 75 or 76?
The year escapes me, but he's been there for a while.
He's been there for a little. So he knows the lingo.
It's more than a hot minute.
Yeah, he knows
the plenipotentiaries go over, I believe, in 76.
Okay, so he's been there for a little bit. He knows the lingo, and
So he gets to Valley Forge in February. The impressions of him are off the charts immediately. He's referred to as the fabled god of war, the personification of Mars. This is how some of the enlisted and the officers see him.
Mars.
Washington says to him basically, like, you're volunteering. Can't promise you pay. Can't promise you rank. I will bust my ass to make you a major general and to get you appointed inspector general, but you're going to have to produce a product. I need you to do that. So go out, tour the encampment, come back with recommendations. Von Steuben is horrified when he does his inspection tour of the camp. Yeah. He says, filth and nastiness is spread among the huts. Carcasses of dead horses and offal are littered about the commissary stalls everywhere. He writes to a friend of his and says, you and I have had the luxury of commanding European troops who obey without question. These American fellows, first they must understand why something ought to be done, and only then will they do with it. So he makes a number of suggestions to Washington about sanitation, about how the defenses can be improved. It's an across-the-board kind of thing, and then says, okay, I'm going to have a plan to train these guys next. So what von Steuben will do in order to train the American army, he starts with Washington's Life Guard, right, which are encamped near the Potts House. They're responsible not just for Washington's safety and well-being, but also Washington's baggage.
His lifeguard was from his summer encampment on the beach. Yes, he was at Ocean City. He was just.
They have all the little life preservers. So that's the symbol.
That's
gonna
be the next T-shirt.
It's not a.
That'll
knapsack.
be the next T-shirt. Is Washington's lifeguard?
It's the ring.
It's the ring. It's not a knapsack. Yeah.
So goddamn it.
So he'll supplement the lifeguard with men that he picks from units throughout the entire army. The lifeguard at this time is created only of Virginians. And it's sort of quiet. And it speaks to that era where national identity is still trying to emerge. Washington feels Virginians are the most loyal. Interestingly, Caleb Gibbs is from Massachusetts and he commands the thing, but everybody else is a Virginian. But anyway, von Steuben takes them as a base and Washington encourages him, get other guys. So he picks another 150 or so men from throughout the army and he begins training them himself.
Okay.
And he does it by rote example. Forget everything you thought you knew. Okay. We start with building blocks. What is the position of attention? What is the position of rest?
You must unlearn what you have learned. Yes. Yes, we just went full Yoda on here.
All
right.
All right.
You're going to have to do that with a German accent.
Yeah.
No,
stop. Quit right now. I want to save you from your own ridiculous German Yoda. Don't do it.
Let's do German Yoda.
So so he gets them together, and it's that building block system, right? And you basically graduate to more complex and then military maneuvers. By the time we're announcing the alliance with France and celebrating that on May the 6th on the Grand Parade at Valley Forge, large elements of the Continental Army are now moving in unison according to a common drill manual for the first time. It's this professionalized European army that Washington always wanted to have. This is what's being presented. This is the product. Within less than a week, he is confirmed as a major general by Congress and officially appointed Inspector General of the Army. So for me, one of the other important things about Valley Forge is it's the birthplace of the professionalized American Army.
Right.
And in many ways, von Steuben is going to be the father of that. And, you know, what he accomplishes there, it's a basic thing, right? He gets them through the basic proficiencies, but the book he writes, the Blue Book, that's not even printed until 1779. That's not widely distributed to the Army's officer corps until like 1780, 1781.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Just in time for things to be winding down.
Right?
Right.
Exactly. So,
Wow,
but the way, and it's for me a couple of things that are incredible about this. He doesn't speak English.
Yeah.
Right. So he's learning English on the fly. He's working through road example. He's working through translators. He's doing those things. He's going home. He's writing things down at night in French, handing it over to Washington's staff who are translating it into English. It's this really combined arms effort.
And Washington and French translations always work out.
Always work out.
Yep.
Always work out very well.
As long as the Dutch aren't
That's
involved.
another
That's
F9
right.
joke.
Say don't bring in the Dutch.
Right.
Yeah.
Jacob von Braun is not there. You're fine.
Yeah.
So, but you know, for me, that's half of it. That's the part that everybody expects. But the other half for me is the social change that I think von Steuben is responsible for in the Army. If you actually read the entire Blue Book, half of it's going to deal with all these military maneuvers, and they do get building block fundamentally more difficult. The other half of the book deals with things like hygiene, castrametation, and the roles of officers. The fact that von Steuben was willing to personally drill enlisted men, and this is a guy who's a Prussian nobleman. Yeah, he's not high up,
But still.
but he's Junker class. He's noble. He is not a commoner. The fact that he is willing to be hands-on with commoners sends a culture shock message to the American officer corps, who would use the British model of sergeants being the hands-on element and officers taking over from there. Von Steuben's breaking a barrier to say, look, okay, you know, yeah, the class thing is important to an extent here, but you need to focus on your job as a commissioned officer. And that is, you have a responsibility to those men. You have a responsibility to care for those people. Right. So I think he's infusing that.
Yeah, your men are worthless if they don't know what to do.
No. Or if they have no confidence in you.
That's what I mean. Like, you can't command men that don't believe in you, believe in themselves, like all that.
How much, weird question, how much do we think Washington learned from von Steuben?
I think he probably learned quite a bit in terms of how does an army operate, you know, from that hygienic standpoint.
Like logistically.
Right, logistically,
right?
yeah.
Right.
Because that's not a Washington thing.
Yeah.
You know, Washington can be a decent commander, an aggressive commander, but I don't think logistics are ever his strong suit. And I think, you know, and it's the combination of these factors. It's Congress getting off its ass, fixing the commissary, fixing the quartermaster, listening to Washington, who's good at identifying the problems, and then this dude flying in here and helping to fix it. Like, you have Green, you have von Steuben, you have that committee, and all this stuff is coalescing at the same time. Right. And it's creating a highly professionalized force that Washington wants. It gives him something that's actually usable in the field in a reliable way.
Awesome.
Okay. And there's dividends are paid immediately.
Immediately.
Yeah.
When they move out of there, you know, on June 19th, within 9 days at their Battle of Monmouth. In May, Washington's even starting to send feelers out. Like, he sends most of Maxwell's New Jersey Brigade out of the encampment in May. And they go into South Jersey. Right. Because you have to remember what's happening concurrently with all of this is news of the French alliance. We're celebrating it. This is an oh shit moment for the British High Command.
Right.
When they find out about this, because they understand that the war has now been turned on its ear.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Prior to French involvement, Britain could afford to look at this as a constabulary action.
They're putting a small rebellion down.
A small rebellion, and they could wrestle with their conflicted national consciousness over how they prosecute this war, because the Americans never had the actual naval power. They never had the actual infantry power. And France is a traditional enemy. Like, they can all hate France. But France is, they've gone to war with France 6 times in the 100 years before the Revolution. And unlike the Americans, France has a powerful infantry force. France has a powerful navy that can go toe-to-toe with the Brits everywhere. France has the ability to threaten British interests in the Caribbean, with the rum trade, with sugar, the slave trade off the western coast of Africa, what Britain hopes are burgeoning dominions off the coast of India. France could even invade England itself. I mean, the channel's short. We use it to go liberate Europe.
Yeah,
you know, it's not a long trip. So Britain, seeing all of this, the ministry in London realizes that this is not a good thing. William Howe has been recalled home already as the British commander. Henry Clinton has taken his place. Basically, what Henry Clinton gets is, hey, congratulations, you're finally in command. You wanted it. By the way, 10,000 of your best troops, we're sending them to the Caribbean because we have to defend the West Indies. Yeah. So it reduces troop strength here immediately, and Clinton's got to go hold up in New York.
Do you think when Clinton assumes command, he's like, they sent 3 of us here. And
they sent 3 of us here.
I am the last one.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, oh, God.
But he's the same guy who, refers to himself as a shy bitch. So
That's true.
That's right. Yeah. I love when the revolution starts turning in the favor here of the United States.
Bitch.
I love what a Voltron that the American Revolutionary War turns into, or the War for American Independence turns into. That's a Voltron of you have a Prussian dude, you have the French, Spanish coming in. Right. You have all of these just.
And before the war is France will do everything except invade England itself. And they come very close to doing it in 1779. There was supposed to be a combined Franco-Spanish fleet. The Bourbons were going to cooperate on this. And a storm blew that off course. So they never invade England proper, per se. But they struggle everywhere else.
Spanish have a real problem with doing that. They always get blown off course.
Right, 1588.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So France changes this entire complexion. It creates this nonstop grind of the war that Britain, and then, you see the Spanish, although they never ally with us. They ally themselves with France. Spain will never ally with or cooperate with our military because they are leery of, they
don't want to back a loser?
Yeah, well, they're weary of their colonies saying, oh, you said they could do this to the Brits. Why don't you just let us go?
Yeah.
Right. Rey Carlos Tres, the king of Spain at the time, actually refers to his North American subjects in a proclamation about the Bourbon alliance in this war. Okay. He refers to them as my North American vassals.
Oh boy!
So it's just he's making it real clear, who's in charge here.
Okay.
So yes, it does change the complexion of the war. I think one of the things that we have to bear in mind is though, why is France doing this? And because most people are yes, I get it. France is there and we're going to win because of France. And yes, you're right. We are. But guess what? France wanted to take over after we failed. And the 2 things I've always pointed out to visitors are in the treaties we signed, there's 2 of them, the Treaty of Alliance and the Treaty of Amity and Commerce, signed in February of 78. The Treaty of Alliance in Article 7. And if His Most Christian Majesty, which is the referential for the King of France, shall think proper to attack any of the islands situated in the Gulf of Mexico or near that Gulf, which are at the present under the power of Great Britain, all said isles in case of success appertain to the crown of France. Treaty of Commerce and a Treaty of Amity and Commerce, Article 10. They go on to say that France and the Most Christian King will have the enjoyment and exercise of the right of fishing on the banks of Newfoundland, and that's indefinite. So what France has done by treaty is they've looked at some of the most fought-over offshore ports in that prior war in the 1750s and 1760s and says, all right, we're going to take these by treaty.
Yeah.
Because what you can do with those strong offshore port bases is you can then dominate the eastern seaboard of the United States.
Yeah.
America still has no navy. The hope is they will have severely weakened the English.
Okay.
The Spanish they can probably deal with in a peace by giving them things back in the south. But France's goal here is going to be what they lost in the 7 Years' War. That's why they're here. And I think people
brilliant.
Need to think about that. Even prior to the alliances that are signed, you go back to 76, Johann de Kalb, who was a French officer before he came here. All the French officers, with the exception of Lafayette, were sent here by the crown. They were handpicked.
Yeah.
And de Kalb writes in 76, in December of that year, when things are looking bleak, that, and this is to Silas Deane and Richard Henry Lee, he says he has a plan to save the American states. And that what they need to do is they need to go and ask the French government for somebody who can be the temporary military and civil chief. Like, that's a wild thing. They want a French general to come be the temporary military and civil chief of the United States. And they've tagged the Comte de Broglie to do this.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I have never heard. That is amazing.
that goes over like a lead fucking balloon.
Yeah,
I'm
I bet.
sure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the treaties are a new way.
Okay.
You know, to try to angle at that. And I asked, you know, really, if you think about French involvement at a basic level, like, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. This doesn't make sense. Like, we can understand you wanted to tweak the English a little bit or something like that, but you've now engaged yourself globally and committed billions of dollars to this when you have a rack treasury. So, I mean, what I think is...
Well, we'll see how that'll play out
right,
shortly.
And for them,
Yeah.
the gamble doesn't pay off at all. But
Yeah.
people need to think about the geopolitical aspect and
That
nature
is
of
so-
All right, I
Wow.
have several
Wow.
things on this.
Okay.
So one,
Yeah.
all of our allies, like allies, whether they're direct or indirect, what are the three basic ones that we end up with? France, Spain, the Netherlands. The basics, like directly or indirectly. I don't think any of them, as we just illustrated with the French, are helping us because they believe in this thing we're doing, right?
Yeah.
The French are, looking for their 7 Years' War, French and Indian War recompense. The Dutch are just like
Which, by the way, is what the British are looking for. They're looking for their 7 years war recompense with the taxes.
It's kind of one of the ways our war starts.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
But the Dutch, they have a long beef with the British, right? They've had several major naval clashes, right? So there's that. And then one of the things that I like to do when you get down the deep rabbit holes, like, why is Spain doing this? Dude, the War of Spanish Succession isn't that long ago.
No, it's not.
And it's still on the minds. And it's like anything we can do to weaken this enemy in England. It's like, dude, there are so many threads and reasons, but none of them are, we believe in what you're doing.
Right. Yeah.
Like, none of them.
Lawrence Washington fights in that war.
Right. Right.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
He's a Cartagena. And that's Mount Vernon's name comes from the guy he served under. He served under Admiral Vernon at Cartagena in that war.
And honestly, dude, like, remember we did with Kevin Duffus, Blackbeard, right?
Yeah.
His entire legend pops out of all that too. So, but all right.
Amazing. Wow.
So
okay.
without jumping down all those rabbit holes, I just kind of wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
It's like
That's
none of
amazing,
our
though.
allies are actually here because they believe in us. They've all got their own reasons. But are we moving on from von Steuben? Because
Yes.
I want to ask questions.
We are moving on from von Steuben, yes.
All right. So we're not going to talk about the man and on all the things that people talk about the man.
Yeah.
Why do we not talk about who he may or may not be personally?
Right. So I don't usually bring it up proactively because I don't have a good answer to say yes or no one way or the other, right? The question has come up a lot in the past 10 years.
Because our conversations about a lot of things have changed in the last 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a fair thing. The thing to me that is sad is the minority, statistically, of those questions about von Steuben's sexuality. What was he gay? Was he not? Right? When I get those questions, the minority statistic is somebody who is genuinely interested in obtaining the answer because they want to figure this out. A lot of times I'm getting the question from people and who phrase it like this. Well, he wasn't really gay.
Okay.
Like, tell me, he wasn't. No, maybe. Like, well, I'm sorry, I didn't even bring that up. What are you talking about? He's like, well, you're in von Steuben. You know the rumors, right? Right? Like, well, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, and it's the people who are so short-sighted that they see this person who's always been in the pantheon of American heroes, and their tiny f***ing minds
Can't
process
grasp that he might be different than
might
you
be
in one
different than
way.
you. Yeah. And that makes him less of a man or less of a person in their eyes. So, I've had the discussion in a rational way with a lot of folks. There are factors that point to it's a strong probability ends up being the answer.
Sure.
He's never married. There is never any indication in any documentation of a female love interest. He adopts, and that's the language, adopts two men who he serves with during the course of the American Revolution, who are Continental officers, both of whom are lifelong bachelors. And there is a train of thought that language of adoption is a way of protecting those individuals civilly so that, if you were to pass away, there is a legal tie and connection where you can pass something on. They become heirs to your estate.
Right.
Right. William North is one of those people, and that's exactly what happens at the end of von Steuben's life. There's nothing hard and fast where we can say, yes, he was gay. No, he was not gay. But there's a lot of strong indicators pointing to, yes, that's a strong possibility. You know, if the question can't be answered, what my hope would be is that at least opens people's minds to say, like, dude, in the 18th century, people were people.
So
right?
that's why I wanted to bring this up, because I want people to see themselves in the stories we tell. And
Yep.
for the longest time, the stories basically reflect the three people in this room, right?
Yep.
And at work, I want stories to reflect things that my daughters are going. And thankfully, at my work, we have stories that, you know, my daughters could see themselves in, and without the long story there, blah, blah, blah. But that's something that's important to me. And so with these conversations that have been changing over the last 10 years and coming more to the front, and people are, whether they like it or not, having to confront these themes, these concepts of self and humanity that we've forced people to put into hiding places and just to simply fucking exist. Yeah. I always want to ask this question, not because of the middle school boy in me is like, oh, this is something cheeky to talk about.
Right.
But it's like, this is potentially his truth. And that shows that you can be important, impactful, influential. You can be a lot of things, and things like that don't actually matter. Yeah. They're just you.
Right.
But they're your life and people's lives. So thank you for going down there with me for a second, because I hope I didn't make you nervous. Like I wasn't going to laugh at this. I literally want to bring this up because it kind of wears me out that people don't know that people of the past are the same as people of today.
Yes. And I've said that to people. If you think that, like, there was not one gay person in the Continental Army, you're kidding yourself.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
It's insane.
I mean, like, you are. And there are, on the flip side of the individuals who be like, he wasn't really gay. There have been people who I've had this conversation with, and I've said, look, I just can't give you a clear answer, and I'm sorry.
Right.
Right? I've said this is what it points towards, but I can't tell you yes or no. There are some people who've looked disappointed. And what I've said to them is, you know, you look a little disappointed. And if you're looking for a hero who matches that, they're out there. Yeah. And in the 18th century, it's really hard for us to say these are the people who they were, but they're there.
They're definitely
Take my
there.
word for
they
that.
exist.
They exist.
100%.
And you know, and they are heroes. And yes, people have to relate to historical figures.
And I'll be honest, Ken, on my low road, when I get annoyed at how certain people can't have evolved thoughts, I'm always humored that our military grew from a mind of somebody that could, you know, ooh, be gay. Oh, when you consider how we handled the conversation today. Yeah. Or guys like Pulaski, Pulaski, right? So I like to bring it up because it's a reflection of somebody who doesn't know that they are reflected in this story.
Yep.
And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because von Steuben literally, you could make the case, single-handedly saves this military in a matter of weeks.
Absolutely.
And
10 weeks.
Yeah.
And
but
it's
like
crazy.
Literally, I'm almost like, isn't it even cooler that a man who was like basically like had to hide who he was still able to accomplish this incredible thing and all the stuff that we now have because that army was successful.
Yep.
Right. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. No. So moving on from Steuben, moving on from all this, we're getting into springtime.
Right. Getting into springtime. Unfortunately, while all this good stuff is happening in the spring, like the committee from Congress, von Steuben's arrival, it's when we do see sickness levels just skyrocket.
Because the weather's changing.
The weather has changed, and much of this has to do with the poor attention to sanitation and hygiene over the course of the winter. When the weather gets warmer, unfortunately, we've created a breeding ground for all kinds of nasty germs.
Yeah.
Which, you know, Joseph Lister hasn't been born to invent germ theory yet, so they don't understand that.
Right.
They do know a bunch of people are starting to get sick once March rolls around. It to me is a really sad irony because there's so much positive momentum, and then it's whoosh, all this illness. And they're going to experience cases of typhus and typhoid. What the biggest problem is going to be amoebic dysentery.
Sure.
And amoebic dysentery, you know, if folks have ever had salmonella, you've had something like it, but you haven't had it as bad. Amoebic dysentery is called the bloody flux.
Oh, yeah.
In the 18th century, massive amounts of vomiting and diarrhea mixed with copious amounts of blood. And, you know, today we can cure that with antibiotics. At the time, they don't have that. Medical science is what it is. It's going to be bleeding, or it's going to be low-dose administration of Ipecac and tartar emetic, which are abdominal expectorants to induce more vomiting. in an attempt to realign your humors, realign your biles. So in reality, there's number 9. In reality, these guys, if they
I'm getting my
contracted,
hole punch ready.
yeah, I won my ticket today. In reality, their body will be able to stave this off, or it won't.
Yeah.
And either way, it's a long, slow process, usually 8 to 10 weeks. It's extremely debilitating to the body, weakens it quite a bit, as you can imagine. Roughly 1,800 to 2,000 individuals die of disease during the course of this encampment. It is without a doubt, the highest death rate by disease in any winter encampment for the Continental Army. It's never even close to that afterwards. They learn a lot of hard lessons at Valley Forge. Interestingly, Washington constructs his hospital systems in a way that are designed to look after the mental and physical health of the Army. Every one of Washington's 17 brigades, he has 17 infantry brigades there, have 2 flying hospitals that are constructed 100 yards behind the center of the brigade line. We have 1 reproduction flying hospital hut today at Valley Forge. It's in the rear of Charles Scott's Virginia Brigade, which is my ancestors.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's
go.
So
they are substantially longer than enlisted huts, and they do, we think, all have wooden roofings. We know that they are designed to have windows, doors. Aeration is key. They have wooden floors. They're going to be 1 patient to a bed. They focus a lot on cleanliness, changing over sheets, getting rid of straw, boiling linens, scrubbing surfaces with witch hazel or vinegar. They don't understand why this helps per se, because they don't have
that
the knowledge
vinegar away from me. I'm going to do it.
know it works.
They just know, yep, you keep it clean, less people are dying.
Yep.
So when you go to the hospital with a complaint, you're evaluated by a surgeon or a surgeon's mate, and they will prescribe a treatment. You might take that back to the encampment where you're at your hut, or you might be admitted. If you're admitted and you're not made well within about a week or so, you're usually shipped out to a general hospital, more permanent structure, Lidditz, Chester, Yellow Springs, Reading, Ephrata, Lancaster, places like that. And the men are being cared for there. What this results in is the vast majority of disease deaths are in the general hospitals, not in the flying hospitals in camp. And that's Washington doing a couple of things that I think are smart. First of all, they don't really know how the disease spreads. They just know all of a sudden these people are getting sick, man.
Right.
So Washington's thought, keep the sick guys and the healthy guys separated.
Nice.
In case it's transmitted person to person. And now that unfortunately we've lived through COVID, this makes sense for people.
Yeah.
Right. To think about the early days of pandemic is what I usually tell them. And it's, for the deaths then happening far away, Washington is preserving the mental health of the Army, because
they're not seeing it all the time.
Not seeing death all the time.
Yeah.
And death on a battlefield, as horrific as it is, that's an expected quantity in warfare. But you can shoot back at the enemy. You're not going to be able to shoot at the disease and make an impact.
Right.
Right. So he's trying to preserve both of these at the same time. The Park Service in the 1970s and late 70s, early 80s conducted really extensive ground penetrating radar and seismic testing to confirm once and for all what's under here, because the entire main encampment is preserved, and it had been thought for years that these bodies were buried at Valley Forge somewhere, many of the graves unmarked. Never have found evidence of mass graves. There are some
because they're in the
graves.
communities.
They're in the communities.
Yeah.
Got
Right.
it.
So while there are some bodies that were buried there, I know of like 6 spots.
I wonder if we're doing the search for our mass graves wrong. I wonder if there's hospitals we don't know about,
Could be.
like relative to the prison. Because you think 3 years, that many, we know pox and other sicknesses overtake it. We have no accounts. I bet you we're looking in the wrong. We got to look for community hospitals.
Yep.
And
Community
things.
hospitals, Potter's Fields, churchyards, that sort of stuff. And that's where they're at for the most part.
You know what?
But-
Light bulb.
But for
Good
your,
job, Ken Gavin.
but for
Thank
your
you.
place, though, I seem to remember that there being like record of a cemetery around 1920.
No. There's references, and we'll come back to Fort
Okay.
Frederick conversations later. But
Okay.
what you just said, and this is why I do this show. Most people don't realize I do this podcast just to make myself better. And to learn and things like that. And so honestly, Ken, like you just light bulbed me for something. So thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
that.
I've earned my T-shirt.
You have. And soon, hopefully you'll earn your sub. Next time you come on the show, we'll present you with a
Right, I
sub.
have 3 more to go. Bang, bang, bang.
Knock 'em out.
So
Just knocking them down.
that's how he's using the medical department. The Army will leave by, and I'm going to wrap it here. The Army will leave by June 19th. As I said, some are leaving a little earlier, but Washington's being an aggressive posture. He knows the British have to leave Philadelphia. He wants to be prepared to pounce, and he wants to hit them on the road to New York. He's just praying for an opportunity to do it. The opportunity comes 9 days later on June 28th at Monmouth Courthouse.
This is what I want you to come back and talk about. Are you good to talk about the fight at Monmouth?
I can do Monmouth, yeah.
Because the more I read about Monmouth, the more fascinated I am. When I was a kid, Monmouth was for me it was the hot fight.
Right.
And it's so much more than the hot fight.
Yep.
We get so focused on how hot it was and the heat casualties and for sure, absolutely relevant, super important part of the story. But this army is an important part of that story. The heat,
Huge.
it's the everything they just went through and what you've told us over these last 2 episodes.
Yep.
That is why I want to come back to this. I want to hear you tell that story.
Sure.
Now that I've got the context of Valley Forge in my mind, the way you've said it.
Yep.
So, but then to kind of go back to that guy I was saying that was kind of bitching about the fact that not much happens in 78, 79. I'm like, you couldn't said it better. 9 days later. Right.
Yeah.
We go from break camp to smack Monmouth victory.
Yeah. And it's huge.
So wind it down then to hand it to you. So we've had this. This is the moment the Army turns the corner, I guess, for the rest of the war, yes?
Yep. Absolutely.
Is it known immediately after Monmouth that this is kind of what has just happened?
Yeah.
Do you think people are aware that this is a very different Army?
I think within the Army itself, within the halls of Congress, to an extent within the civilian population, especially after Monmouth, and on the other side of the field with Crown forces, it's clear. This is not the same type of army that was encountered previously.
So what's the tally where we're at this point? In the spring and early summer of 78, we have an army that can now fight this fight. We have a supply system that is as organized as it has ever been thus far. We have international components falling into place, whether they're here because they love us or not. Right. France is here. The Dutch are here. The Spanish are involved somehow.
Yep.
This is the moment. I mean, there's a reason why, even though we focus on Valley Forge as a specific encampment, why that whole moment is important. And when you put those all things, you say them out loud, and you're like, the war really just turned the corner.
It did.
Right. I mean, it completely turned the corner.
Almost out of nowhere, this is the most positive year for the cause since 75.
Right, starting it.
Since we had the initial successes, Lexington conquered Ticonderoga, forcing the British to evacuate Boston. Everything went on a steep downhill after that. Right. Like it hits a nadir. And then in 78, it just goes right back up top.
Even though nothing happened in 78.
Yeah, or 79.
Or 79. Whatever.
So I guess Monmouth would be awesome. I want to do that. So I kind of want to wrap with a quote.
Go for it.
It's a little bit of a longer one, but I think it's good. I think it talks about the legacy of Valley Forge. At the centennial celebration in 1878, which was massive, estimates 50 to 75,000 people in the crowd.
Wow.
Henry Armit Brown is the speaker. So like Edward Everett type entertainment, it's 1878. Okay. Henry Armit Brown's a young dude. He was born in 1844. He was educated Ivy League lawyer, did not serve in the American Civil War because he was graduating from college in 1865. When you get into the 1870s, he's like that guy that people want. So he's going to do all these massive centennial speeches. So he comes to Valley Forge, and at the very end of his very long speech, he says the following: "The age in which we live is but a link in the endless and eternal chain. Our lives are like the sands upon the shore. Our voices like the breath of the summer breeze that stirs the leaf for a moment and is then forgotten. Whence we have come and whither we shall go, not one of us can tell. And the last survivor of the mighty multitude shall stay but a little while. But in the impenetrable to be, the endless generations are taking our place to advance as we fall. For them, as for us, shall the earth roll on, and the seasons come and go, the snowflakes fall, the flowers bloom, and the harvests be gathered in. For them, as for us, shall the sun, like the life of man, rise out of darkness in the morning and sink into darkness in the night. For them, as for us, shall the years march by in the sublime procession of the ages. And here, in this place of sacrifice, in this vale of humiliation, in this valley of the shadow of that death out of which the life of America arose, regenerate and free. Let us believe with an abiding faith that to them union will seem as dear, and liberty as sweet, and progress as glorious as they were to our fathers and are to you and me, and that the institutions which have made us happy, preserved by the virtue of our children, shall bless the remotest generations of the time to come. Henry Armit Brown developed typhoid fever and died less than 2 months later on August 21st of 1878. That was his last public speech. He left behind a wife and a daughter, and his second child was born 1 week after his death.
That was incredible.
Wow.
So, firstly, that was so powerful, and I'm speechless. Secondly, I was getting in Flanders Fields vibes. Like, that was more poetry than prose. Like, that was beautiful. And then the third thing I wonder, because of specific word choices, and definitely in this moment we're in, union. Mm-hmm. It means something a lot different and a lot more provocative and stronger in 1878 than it did in 1778, 61, or 1865. And I gotta wonder how much the experience of the War of the Rebellion, the American Civil War, and then also combined with this nostalgia of a centenary happening, influenced that word choice.
It's highly intentional. I'm totally convinced of it. And he's speaking to an audience that has a lot of Civil War veterans in it, people who have lived through that conflict in what it was. He knows the person that's brought him there that day, Anna Morris Holstein, who was the driving force behind this celebration and who was working to raise funds to buy the Washington's headquarters building to open his museum. She is a Civil War veteran. Her husband is a Civil War veteran. Anna Morris Holstein was with the Second Corps. She was the matron of Camp Letterman. Hartranft and Hancock are honorary grand marshals for the parade that takes place that day. David McMurtry Gregg is leading the parade that day. There are 6 different GAR posts in that parade that day. This is him saying, this is where we've been.
This is what we just did.
This is what we just did.
Yeah.
Like, don't forget it when you think about your kids.
Yeah.
And here's how it all comes together. Right? And that for me, that last couple of paragraphs, it's just when he gets to the point, if I read it out loud or I read it in my head, it's the point when he says, and here. It's highly emotional for me. You know, there's something about that language, and a portion of this is on the National Memorial Arch up at Valley Forge. And then when you know his personal story after this, like, he was supposed to go to Monmouth next.
Right.
And he was too damn sick to do it. Oh, man. He couldn't get there.
Yeah.
Ken, this was, honestly, man, this is in the pantheon of well over 100 episodes we've done. These are all-time greats. This story was incredible. You are a absolutely fantastic storyteller. I am so pumped to continue to come back to this story. And honestly, for all of you who are listening, you know what you don't get to do? You don't get to edit it. I get to spend like hours with these shows that you don't get to spend. And having edited the first episode already, I can tell you I'm excited for this, man, because I had so much fun. Like, I kept telling you, I think we were texting, like, I had to go back because I'm like, I'm just listening. I'm like, I'm not editing, I'm just listening. So I had to like go back. So I'm very excited. So I look forward to catching up with you on the show again. And then I think what I want to do is I think I want to get us out in the field. I think I want to get us up to Valley Forge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, Ken, I want to tie it into another trip we're taking up to Pennsylvania for the Revolution. Are you familiar with the Doane Gang?
Yes.
We're going to be exploring the Doane Gang next season. So
nice.
I think what we'll have to do is coordinate a from the field where you get us on grounds at Valley Forge and you show us some stuff.
Yeah.
Ken, do you do public social media, history, anything like that? Where do our listeners catch up with you other than getting out to Valley Forge when you're there?
Yeah, they can find me at Captain Clotheshorse on Instagram.
Is there a story there?
Yeah, because in my 18th century sort of living history world, I've been referred to as quite the peacock, and
you do look great.
Captain
you look
Clotheshorse stuck. Thanks, I appreciate it. So, and I'm Kenneth Gavin on Facebook.
Since we linked up and we're now social media friends, I've seen a bunch of these. Every time I'm like,
look at that. I was like, and you have a wig. You are fancy.
It's a labor of love or insanity.
Yes, it's
one
all of the
two.
above. Yeah.
So no, people can look me up there. If when you edit or want to put my email address up in some way, that's fine too, because I can certainly be available to do tours.
Yeah.
And I'm available to do lectures for groups and stuff like that too. So I don't, the best way to give you that is to put it up there, but
We'll just get it. You give me an email. We'll talk about it. We'll put it up on the screen. So if you're listening, watching right now, reach out to Ken Gavin. Book them. Get your story sold. Get it, honestly. Get a private story. It's awesome.
Yeah. So I appreciate the opportunity to come back. You guys are awesome. It's humbling. It really is to hear you say those things. I just really have a lot of fun doing this. It gives me joy. And Parker, this is an
dude, Horatio Gate, Parker.
Horatio Gate.
Look, for a man who doesn't land every joke he delivers, this was a super strong land. This was a direct hit, Parker. That was a direct hit.
Yep.
I said to him earlier, he said, do you want me to do this live on the air, or should I give it to you beforehand? And I got real honest. I said, honestly, you have to be the one that judges. Do you want to risk the reaction live on the air? Like, what if it's not the reaction you want? And he was like, I'm so glad you risked that, because that was so funny, dude. Like,
that was awesome.
I'm happy.
It's definitely next tour I give. This is going on under my ear.
Awesome.
So, well, that's going to be it for the History Things podcast for Valley Forge for basically the end of season 6 at this point. The year-end episode is in front of you. You're going to hear about what's ahead in season 7, what we are looking back upon, what we're proud about, what we tripped and fell over in season 6. We've had
absolutely nothing.
We've had a year of growth, a year of learning. It's been quite a ride, Parker. I've been so excited to do it with you and to wind things down. So if you're going to stick around for our year-end look, we'd appreciate it. Have a good time. Have a holiday celebration. But for otherwise, Ken, I couldn't think of a better way to end than just a heavyweight conversation about a topic that I think most people should be more versed in. So thank you so much.
This is definitely one of my favorites that we've done this whole
all-time
season.
great. All-time great.
This is amazing.
Cool. So getting out of here with us, you can follow us on our social media. Search for the History Things podcast on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Send Parker and I emails by sending us a message at historythingspodcast@gmail.com.
Also by Pigeon.
And by Pigeon, we do accept the carrier pigeon still. We are old school like that. 5-star ratings and reviews on your favorite podcast apps. There's so much fun stuff coming up. We can't even share it all right now. That's why you have to tune in next week for the year-end episode. But for our guest, Ken Gavin, for Parker Russell, I'm Pat McGuire. This has been the History Things podcast, season 6. Not officially signing off, but basically signing off. Slán Gafol. We'll catch you all later.